All righty. Well, welcome to this week's weekly live Zoom. I am Stephen Palmieri coming to you, and we have special guest Matt Listro. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Don't forget about CreditCon. I got to put in that shameless plug, www.credit-con.com. Going to be a good time. Hope you guys come out and join us there.
Dude, if you're not going to plug yourself, who else will? That's how I view it. So, man,
That's true.
we can talk about ourselves. So, awesome, man. Yeah, last week you were at Mardi Gras, right? You had a little too much.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. That was a little bit hard to hear at different points.
Did you give those free software samples to the for the Credit Admirable software?
Yeah, I was throwing those out. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
very cool. But so, all right, so we've got CreditCon coming up at the end of April. If you want to take just a few minutes, so we've still got some slots available, seats available, things like that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of folks in here who are on tight budgets and stuff. But I mean, let's talk about, can they do room sharing? Can you do a room share and then also get a bunk? Like, will they put a potty?
Listen,
Like
I know some people in this industry. I won't throw out any names, but I know some people in this industry that years ago roomed together at some of the Tampa events and that are still lifelong friends to this day.
Yeah.
It's a great way to meet people. And truly, you're not going to spend much time in that room. We have, if you've seen, go to the page, scroll down, we have the speaker lineup, we have the social calendar lineup. We're going to give you stuff to do. You're going to be in the room to sleep, get up in the morning, maybe not come down and do that yoga, but we're going to keep you busy. So come on by. It's really truly an investment in yourself. I mean, why are you coming here on this Zoom meeting today? Why are you spending time online reading what other people are posting? Because you're trying to educate yourself. And that's what it's all about. If you haven't been to CreditCon before, we're going to give you a certificate of completion, a nice little certificate. I think we have a couple hundred frames, so hopefully you'll be one of the first couple hundred people and get a nice leather-bound frame on it. But you could use that. I mean, I used mine. I went to a bunch of different events a long time ago. I saved all my certificates, and then I eventually applied to the real estate board in my state to be an instructor for credit. And I created a credit course for real estate agents. And I used I showed my, here, this is my degree. And since my degree, I own this company. And I also get my training from these type of events. And I got my course approved. And then I was a trainer. So you could use it for other things. It really, truly can have some value to you.
Yeah, and so Becky just messaged, is this a once-a-year event? It is a once-a-year event, right?
Yep, every spring. We've generally done the end of March. This is the latest we've had it at the end of April. Generally, end of March, end of April. The first year we did was Vegas, then we moved to DC, then back to Vegas, and now we're in Tampa. If the pattern continues, we'll probably be back in Vegas next year. We'll see.
Yeah, so I'm going with Joe Chavaria. He and I are bunking. But so do you have brand ambassadors? I mean, is there an opportunity for folks to come in here and, if they wanted to help you out throughout the 3 days, maybe a discount on a ticket or something like that? I mean, do you need that, or?
We will always take the help. And I have had some people message me before that, hey, I've got a little financial problem. What can we do? And I've oftentimes tried to pick some people and do a discounted ticket where we try and give them a task. We've had some note takers before. Where the job is to take notes for the event and turn in the notes at the end. We've done some of that. We've never done actual labor help, like, hey, come help set up those.
No dishwashers pay for your food.
Yeah. Note takers is pretty much what we've done before. And a couple times before, we've had some scholarship available. We've had some people donate a ticket to give us a scholarship. And so we've done that before in memorandum of other people.
So what I'm hearing, though, is if somebody wants to come but things are tight, they can message you and you'll have the contact.
Yeah. Let's see if we can figure something out.
Yeah. Right? Excellent. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So that's it. We've got CreditCon coming up. We've got over 30 members now. So let's give a round of applause for that. It's amazing. You guys are obviously making this thing what it is. So I've got it on my calendar this Friday to reach out to the NCLC, the National Consumer Law Center, and see what we need to do to get that digital library set up, because I committed to you guys once we get 30. So yeah, we're at 30. Joe Chavaria, he's got 2 new team members that are doing processing that have joined, Eric and Sherry. So welcome to you guys here as well. And see, you guys hear a little feedback, by the way?
Yes, we do.
I'm just gonna kind of mute everybody for right now, I guess. And then, so Lori, I know Lori, you're having problems with your mute. So if you want to say something, just chat in a little chat box and I'll unmute you because I want to just try to keep that little feedback from coming. So sorry about that, but that's what we got to do. All right. So yeah, so I'll talk to NCLC this Friday. And then, so, hopefully I'll be able to, I don't know how long it takes them to get us to the law books, but hopefully, that day I'll be able to buy them, and then we'll figure out how to get everybody's IP addresses. We'll give you guys logins, and you'll be able to have access to all 21 of their law books, which is really cool. I also uploaded the eOscar codes and the eOscar manual. It's like a PDF of the manual. So I uploaded that in the files section of our private group. And so why is that important? That's important because one or two, and Matt, I think they don't do more than 3 eOscar codes per dispute, right? Isn't that the limit? Do you know how many codes?
I do not know.
Okay.
There is a limit as to how many they can select, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I heard a number 3. I'm not sure. I'm sure we can find it out. But anyway, point is whenever they receive your dispute, they basically distill it down to 1, 2, probably no more than 3 of those codes. They do take your documents now, scan them, and forward your documents to the furnishers as well, which again is, part of why if, you're writing it in Crayola and stuff like that, and you want to have any serious chance of communicating with the furnisher afterwards, they are going to get your dispute forwarded to them from the bureaus. So, but the eOscar codes are basically what your dispute's going to be distilled down into. And so I'll kind of, we'll kind of chat on that a little bit more when I go through some of these examples, questions that I've got, especially when I get to your stuff, Sam, because it's like, if, for rounds 2, 3, and 4, if you can figure out a subsequent round, kind of laser focused on one of the applicable eOscar codes, it's a better chance of you not getting this thing kicked as frivolous if they haven't pushed that button before. And why I said rounds 2, 3, and 4, because typically on round 1, you guys kind of know my methodology is to just dispute all of the errors, which, I mean, under the spirit of the law, that's what you're supposed to do, is tell them everything that's wrong. But what they're probably not going to do is fix it. So that gives me kind of like the putting them out of compliance based on their current processes. And then, rounds 2, 3, and 4, if you send like a laser focused dispute with just one eOscar code, I mean, it's arguably less likely that they should kick it as frivolous if you haven't really disputed that one thing before, and if you dispute 15 things on your first round and they're only going to put 2 or 3 codes in the first time, you've still got luck of the draw where you can dispute, let's say you dispute the payment history profile and 15 other things first round, but they didn't hit the payment history profile eOscar code. And you hit that, you dispute the payment history profile for the second round. If they haven't hit that code before, hopefully they won't kick it as frivolous, right? So that's kind of the, very high level, the value of using eOscar. Matt, do you have any, just while we're just kind of covering really high level, do you have any extra input from your perspective on eOscar or what we just went over?
No, Becky was asking when something's kicked as frivolous, what's the next step? Is there a wait time, or do you just do another dispute immediately? And Becky, I do another dispute immediately. Try and, regurgitate what you just did, but maybe put it into a different format. I'm a big fan of the new information method. So they're saying, hey, we're not going to do another dispute unless you give us new information. We'll do that. Give them new information. Hey, I was corresponding with Mrs. Robinson in the customer service department. And based upon that correspondence, I think that this time they'll delete it. So please investigate this again. That's new information. That's specific if you're going back and forth and you're writing the furnisher, but even if you're not, you could say, hey, I just received a communication on this account. Based on that communication, I believe that this time the creditor will delete it. So please investigate this again and send the dispute in again to the bank or whoever it is. And the communication doesn't have to be that you got a letter in the mail from them. It could have been the updated credit report that the credit bureau just sent you showing that it was frivolous. You got a communication, and based on that, you think that it's going to be deleted. And doesn't mean you're right, but that's what you think, and you didn't say anything wrong. But what the person on the other end is going to hear, they're in an English, remember, third world country, English not their first language. They're looking for new information. Here's the words, new information. Check the box, submit it. And so we found that to be very good. Remember, our goal is to get it in that queue. I once had a CEO of a credit union call me up scathing mad on the phone because the consumer had just submitted 6 disputes, and it was 6 disputes times 3 bureaus. And she was all upset that there was a small credit union. They were wasting their time to try and respond to this all the time. And she actually threatened me that if you don't get your client under control, we're going to report you to the Better Business Bureau. I laughed. Oh my God, it was funny because she was that mad.
I've already got an F rating with them because they don't like credit repair, sweetheart. So.
Well, just like the collectors, if the collectors are doing their job, they're making the customer mad because it's a mad customer that opens up their pocketbook and pays the damn bill. It's the same thing here. It's the upset creditors who are going to finally just say, forget it, I don't want to deal with this anymore, and delete it or not respond and let it come off the credit report. That's my job. My job is to be that niggly squeaky wheel.
Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, Becky, once they send you that notice of kicking it, you can redispute it. Yeah. Okay. So let me do
you know what? I got to say one more thing on that. Sometimes it is okay to say, you know what? There's nothing I can do for that one. We write sometimes on we ask for documentation, we get documentation back. I'll paw through it till my eyes bleed and can't find something wrong with it. I mean, that will happen sometimes. You're not going to be 100% successful. The idea is the consumer getting some value from you? Are they getting, only 10% deletions and, oh, wow, we need to go ahead and spend more time on this file? Or are they at like 85% and they're looking pretty good? So sometimes don't lose sight of the big picture. It's okay sometimes to lose some of the battles. You're focusing on the war. And so sometimes it's okay. And that's sometimes hard for us as credit repair people. I want to win everything. I want to win every battle. I want to, I don't want to leave anything on there, but sometimes it's okay to put something aside and refocus your efforts on something else. Sometimes the key is to focus your effort on what's going to do. I was working with someone, I thought he's in this group last night, who sent me a credit report, and it was a TD auto loan. And there was 13 late payments on the TD auto loan. And he was trying to figure out, what could we do to get the account removed, or what could we do to remove all these late payments? And I tried to refocus him. And I said, hey, we have a really good case for the last 2 lates. There was a 30 and 60 July and August of 2019. And if we can get those 2 lates removed, right, then the account's been paid on time for over a year. And that's going to be a much better record than having a 30 and 60 in the last 12 months. And so we had good cause. We had a nice reason. There was a FEMA disaster, and we had a nice excuse to do a dispute for those 2 late payments in August and September. And so I just tried to refocus him on winning that small skirmish, if you will, because that hopefully will do a nice pop in the score. Even though we didn't get the whole account clean, hopefully that will be enough to go ahead and knock that score different. Because in that case, it'll change the client's whole credit because they won't have had anything late in the past 12 months.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. So let's go ahead. I'll do a screen share and we'll just kind of get started with everybody's questions on this. And again, if you guys have questions throughout the process, let me know, say something, unmute. And if I don't get you, then send a comment here. Make sure I do respond to you guys though. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So we've got some good stuff here. So let's see here. So first, Alexander, Alexander had sent us, I've got an example of a student loan, an example of a foreclosure that I want to share with you guys. So he's like, hey, I've got a client in the low 600s, reporting student loans, medical bills. How can we help them? Okay. So here's a student loan, and it shows, this is from Equifax, and it shows before the dispute and after the dispute. And so it's really interesting. And again, part of the value of, if there's one takeaway for you to learn from kind of the methodology that I'm sharing with you, it's not just to look at what's reported, but also to look at what's not even on the template with respect to whether Metro 2 requires it. And as we go through the rest of this course or today, you'll see some examples, especially when I have SAMs that show you some even more information. But that being said, let's just look at what's actually being reported here. So the before example of the student loan has a whole bunch of good payment history, but you still have a bunch of no data months. Okay, so you have information that's not reported on here. And then after the dispute, it looks like, okay, so we've got December of 2014. It looks like they just basically, from what we can tell, I don't know how it happened, but they unreported all the prior good payment history. It's not even on here. So that's a problem.
Chances are that's probably a forbearance or deferment, I think.
Well, but if you look at the above one, it shows good standing payment history. If you look above here. So all these 2012, 2011, 2010 months are just gone, and they were positive. So, I mean, who knows if it's gone in the system or whatever, but it's certainly gone on this report. And I mean, that's certainly potentially a problem.
I follow you because the account was from 2010. I follow you.
Yeah, so exactly. So up here, you've got 2010, 2011, 2012. And then down here, all those months are just after a dispute. It says after dispute, they're gone. So that's a problem. Also, you've got these no data reporting for these months. And this is your Metro 2 base segment field 18. And I'll just pull it up real quick, I guess, for you guys, for some of the newer folks on here. So this is your Metro 2 manual. Again, you can find it online here. This guy has it posted. And your fields definitions, your base segment field 18. And so for Metro 2, if we're going to base everything off the industry standard says it must have 24 consecutive months of payments. But they do have a code D, which says no payment history available. That's basically their get out of jail free card, because Metro 2 does require accurate, complete, and timely reporting, and it defines timely as on a monthly basis. And of course, they know that to actually have monthly reporting history from most people, most furnishers don't have it. So they've got a code for, okay, we're going to report monthly, but we're going to report that we don't actually have any history available. So that's kind of like their get out of jail free, to at least as they're pushing the trade line in every month, the furnishers pushing it into the bureaus. If they don't know the information, they at least have to put something in the data field. Okay, so, but this is your base segment field 18 is where your payment history profile comes from. And so they keyed in code D, no data available. You dispute it, and there's still no data available. That's a problem, number one. So the other thing is, if this thing was recently disputed here in 2010 or 2020, it should be updated with close for like another 3 years of payment history. Okay, I mean, they're supposed to record the current status of the trade line. So it should have 2017, 2018, and 2019 reporting as closed if that's the status. Okay, so just from your payment history profile and the mechanism of them updating it as a result of the dispute, it's not sufficient for them to be like, oh, we haven't reported this thing in 4 years and we're going to verify it, but we're not going to record the current status. I mean, what they're doing is verifying the trade line up to October of 2016. But if this is January of 2020, what is the status of it? And so if it's closed, unless it was, well, I guess, so I take that back. If it was transferred, then, you know, that may explain why they didn't update it, but who was it transferred to? It doesn't show who it was transferred to, okay? But for regular charge-offs and things that are not transferred, they are supposed to report your, 2017, 2018, 2019, and whatever their status is. Now, all that being said,
and hey, if you're talking a technical violation, right there it says they updated January 2020 and they still don't know the balance, not reported. Right. I mean,
exactly.
You just update it. You didn't know the balance when you updated it.
Right, which should be 0, right? So, so to your point, Matt, you said, sometimes you can look till your eyes bleed and you can't find anything. But I mean, I think part of what we're talking about here is if you, what I'm sharing with everybody is once you really start to base everything from Metro 2, I mean, there's always issues because there's so much more data that they're supposed to be reporting that aren't given to you, right? Now, all that being said, okay, so Alexander, you just messaged that it was transferred to Navient. Okay, so all that being said, I did an interview with Charles Parker like 2 weeks ago, and he is a student loan expert, and there is a law called 20 USC 1078-6. I'll message that to everybody here. Let's see here. Type message here to everyone. Let's see here. 20 USC 1078-6. This regulates student loans. Let's pull this bad boy up. Okay. All right, so this is not the FCRA or anything like that. This is a student loan program that has to do with student loans that are in default and rehabilitation. And 20 USC 1078-C, subsection A, paragraph 1, subparagraph C is titled Consumer Reporting Agencies, okay? It says, upon the sale or assignment of the loan, the secretary, which in this case is the Secretary of Education, because these are for government-backed student loans. Upon the sale or assignment of the loan, the Secretary of Education, guarantee agency, or other holder of the loan shall request, so again, this is actually written to instruct the Secretary of Education. This is not actually for consumers' provision of law. This is actually written to instruct the Secretary to perform something. But upon the sale or assignment of the loan, the Secretary, the guarantee agency, or the other holder of the loan shall request any consumer reporting agency to which the Secretary of Education, guarantee agency, or holder, as applicable, reported the default of the loan. So basically, upon the assignment or sale, the Secretary who reported the default of the loan shall be notified to remove the record of the default from the borrower's credit history. So what does this mean? So what this really basically means in the real world is, if this student loan was transferred, then let's go back here. The student loan was transferred. Well, it was sold or assigned. This trade line should be completely removed pursuant to that section of law. And, you know, if you talk to folks who do student loan relief type things, student loan programs, that's kind of one of their pitches for getting folks into rehabilitation, because once they rehabilitate it, without going deep into what that means on this particular Zoom, but there's government programs to get you out of certain defaults and stuff. Once you rehabilitate it, then you can consolidate it, which is basically like a refinance. And once you refinance it through a consolidation, it triggers that section of law. And so these trade lines actually should be gone completely based on the law. So what I would recommend, you know, regardless of all the technical errors and everything else that we've talked about, even though that provision of law is written to regulate the Secretary of Education, I would send a letter to the CRAs. And in this case, you know, basically, I mean, I guess you can cite that section of law if you want to and quote it or whatever. But I would also write to the Secretary of Education, or the the furnisher, which is PH, whoever this is, Fed Loan Servicing. So I would write to them and say, hey, you know, why have you guys not notified the consumer reporting agencies pursuant to this section of law to delete it? And then I would also send it to the consumer reporting agencies. And when I did the Zoom interview, and again, for those of you guys who may not have been in this group for long, in our public group, the one with 1,000 members, go to the student loan tag. We've got the videos tagged, and there was an interview I did with a guy named Charles Parker, and he used to work for the University of Phoenix and another university for like 9 years in their financial aid department. So he dealt with financial aid and student loans, and now he runs a credit repair company and helps people with the student loan programs. And so he said what he does is he sends the letters straight to the bureaus, and usually they delete it. And again, so I think it's important to understand how the law is actually written, so you're not basically sitting here saying, well, Mr. Credit Bureau, I have the right to force you to delete it. Well, I mean, the law is written to force the Secretary of Education to delete it, but certainly, you know, you can use that to give you some leverage, right? So what I would say on that, Alexander, is all these student loans based on the law should be deleted. So, and there's the law, so just fight with them. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions on that? Amazing, isn't it amazing? It's amazing. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know as far as like with the rehabilitation program, they want 9 consecutive payments after they do the consolidation, but obviously they're fully aware of that law. So why does anyone have any input as to why they require the 9 payments? To clean your credit, apparently.
Why they were, is your question why this hasn't been deleted?
Well, my question is, like, if you go into the rehab program and they do the 9 consecutive payments, that is the whole pitch of that, is that it cleans your credit.
Well, that's half of it. So you have to do the rehabilitation, but then you have to do a consolidation, which triggers the closing and the refinance part.
Right.
The rehabilitation itself is supposed to, at the conclusion of that rehabilitation, after those 9, 10 payments, they're supposed to remove that.
Well, so
that's the whole pitch of that program. Yeah.
When I talked to Charles, you know, we went over that specifically, and there is that component that a lot of people don't mention, but once you're rehabilitated, then okay, so it makes no sense to rehabilitate if you've got 20 student loans or 10 student loans and 10.
Well, what happens at the end of the rehabilitation is they find a new servicer for it. And so then whoever's reporting it goes away, and then it goes to the new servicer and they start reporting the account fresh.
Yeah, so it has to transfer. I mean, so it either has to be consolidated or transferred, right? So if you rehabilitate it, it stays with the same servicer. That doesn't make it go bye-bye. But if you have the right to consolidate, which would then trigger the law that we just went over, where it's now transferred. Okay, so
once that consolidation happens, that's when the deletion should occur.
Yeah, in that respect, yeah, because that consolidation in effect is the sale or assignment of the loan, right? So yeah, that should trigger that. Yep, certainly should. Why these are still on here? I mean, I have no idea why there's not a better system in place. I mean, who knows? Maybe Matt, if you got one of those blood-sucking lawyers that wants to do a class action, maybe this is something they can look at. I know you're laughing, but I'm kind of serious because
I think the main interpretation has always been that provision is only implied if the above is met, if the rehab is done. So I had always thought that was one of the two. But that being said, you can be sure I'm probably going to go back to my desk and take 20 USC 1078-6 and write a nice letter and see if I can get some traction on that. If I get some traction, I'm probably going to go ahead and put that sucker right in the software. And,
we even have Listro's drinking the Palmyra University Kool-Aid. Look at that, man.
Hell yeah.
All right, very good. But I do have to give props to Charles Bill Parker, because he's the one that cited that exact law for me. So I definitely got to give him props for that. So, all right, cool. So Alexander, you had another trade line, which this is very similar to the first example we went over. This is a foreclosure of a client of yours. And it shows that the payment history status in January of 2020 is foreclosed, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 years of no data, okay? So if this is the result of the reinvestigation, this is entirely unacceptable. Okay, what they need to do is, if they're not going to delete it, they need to go back and they need to put, foreclosure or whatever, because we literally don't know when it went from current to foreclosed. Okay, that is just not in there. Okay, so, and there's precedent that basically interprets the FCRA to what I'm saying here. So it is not an acceptable reinvestigation for a furnisher, to pull the file out of their garbage can. It's been sitting there for 5.5 years. They haven't reported. They haven't done anything. And then when you dispute it, because what you can dispute is the completeness or accuracy, those two things, completeness or accuracy. And then the statutory requirement is for the bureaus to record the current status and to verify and record the current status. And so it's unacceptable for Bank of America to pull this out of their garbage can after 5.5 years and be like, oh, well, it's January 2020, it's in foreclosure status. We're going to just go ahead and pop a foreclosure for today's month. No, they need to go back if they're going to verify the completeness and accuracy and help the bureaus record the current status. Again, based on their own industry standard, Metro 2 says complete, accurate, and timely is defined as monthly, and based on their own base segment field 18 payment history profile that we went over, just to pull it up, not to talk past everybody. So go back to Metro 2, even their own industry standard says it should report 24 months of payment history. Okay, so at a bare minimum, this should be FFFFFF updated for 24 months to conform to their own industry standard. Okay, so this is totally all sorts of jacked up. And then, that's without to say like all these other historical fields, which again, when I said at the onset of this video, if we can look at this and frame our dispute mind, not with what's given to us, but also what's not given to us on these templates, but what is required under Metro 2. There's all of this historical data. So AB is the account balance. This is pushed into their system every month by the furnisher. The date the payment received, the scheduled payment amount, the actual payment amount. And there's even more. It's like a three-dimensional view, this data, when you really start to go through the field definitions and see everything that's supposed to be pushed in every month. So, all this is incomplete, right? And so at what point do we start to get into the weeds, right? But certainly like a round 2 of, my historical account balance is not reported, right? If you're going to try to trigger an eOscar code. Again, if we're just trying to trigger the code to get a reinvestigation, these are absolutely things you can dispute one-on-one after the first round. But my first round, I throw everything at them. And, you know, hey, maybe they're going to change their process and maybe it'll give me a nice three-dimensional picture. But until that happens, I've got a pretty good assumption that they're going to be out of compliance, right? And that lays my foundation to then be able to pound out the furnishers subsequently, right? So, I mean, if you can then send a round two to the Bureau, maybe, you know, whatever. Let's pull up the eOscar codes real quick here. So again, I posted those on Facebook, but let's take a look. So let's see, where is it here? Okay, yeah, so Alex, where's my freaking thing? Oh, here it is. Because Alex, you said, hold on a second here. You messaged 2017 was sold and auctioned. Yeah, okay, so if this thing was sold and auctioned in 2017, yeah, you say, is there an issue with this saying foreclosed never late? Yeah, absolutely, that's a problem, foreclosed never late. I mean, this thing is just a dumpster fire, right? I mean, that's good that you're seeing that, because I mean, when you really start to learn how to read a credit report, these things are all jacked up all the time. And in fact, I was in one of my depositions with the credit bureaus, and I basically was like, I've never seen an accurate credit report. And they said, oh, come on, Mr. Palmieri, that can't be true. You've never seen an accurate credit report. And I said, no, I've never seen an accurate credit report. And that's, you know, on the record in a deposition. And that's a pretty ballsy thing to say, because I mean, you can lose your credibility, right? If you're an expert or whatever, and you say, I've never seen an accurate credit report. But no,
how about a credit report with no data? That's accurate,
never
right?
Seen an accurate
no data,
right? I mean, when you judge it against Metro 2, you literally realize there is no such thing as an accurate credit report, which ties it back to Becky, your question earlier. How long did it take me to realize, I guess, that was good or whatever? I mean, I still get angry all the time, because it's like, I mean, you tell them these things and they don't delete it, right? So really, there is that game of strategy. But so, okay, here's your.
I gotta chime in on that before you go for it. Can you pop back to that screen for a second?
All right, there we go. I'm popping.
Okay. I saw the foreclosure never late, and I assumed. Now he said it was a auction sale, which goes against what I assumed. I assumed here that it was never late, that it was probably a short sale, where the consumer probably continued to make the mortgage payments. They put the house on the market and they short sailed it. And so I'm going to give you a little strategy for that, and talk about one other thing here too. So I assume this is going to be a short sale, not a short sale, not a auction sale. On the short sale, I've done this before. It depends each state whether or not they have to go through the court system to take the property, if it's a judicial foreclosure or not. My state, what I'm familiar with, is a judicial foreclosure where they have to go through the court. In Massachusetts, it was a short.
Yeah, you said it was a short
sale auction. Okay. In order for that property to transfer from on the short sale, they have to withdraw the foreclosure action. So if there really was, the consumer was in the house and they found a buyer, it was a short sale, some type of short sale, there is going to be a withdrawal of the action of the foreclosure. So the bank never takes possession. It goes from the current owner to the new owner through the short sale. And that's the case. In the court, there's a withdrawal of action for the foreclosure. And you don't have to go to the court to look that up yourself. All you have to do is look in the records and see who the attorney was for either the consumer or who the attorney was for the bank. And you call them on the phone and say, hey, listen, you guys were part of this Bank America action back in 2017. Can you fax me the document showing the withdrawal of action? Paralegal will usually grab it out of the file and fax it to you, or grab it on the electronic file and fax it to you. But now I have the withdrawal of the foreclosure action, right? And now you have an actual court document. And so what we're trying to do is take that court document and get it back into Wells Fargo, Bank America, the credit bureaus, and say, hey, this account is reporting as a foreclosure. That's not accurate. Here's the withdrawal of action. It's not a foreclosure anymore. Anybody reading this credit report thinks the account is in foreclosure, and it's not. So please remove the word foreclosure. And we have successfully gotten them to remove the word foreclosure, or the notation of foreclosure. And then this just becomes an account with some old late payments. And this one doesn't have any late payments, but getting that word foreclosure off of there would actually probably rectify this account entirely. I also want to talk very quickly about the RFI NOE letters. RFI is a request for information. I recently had one with Bank America. We did a request for information. They sent us back ungodly history on the account. We did a little audit of it, and I found 3 different, I don't remember what they were, 3 different things that we cited them for inappropriately charging the consumer. Sent them a NOE, a notice of error, that they're in violation because they didn't properly disclose. They overcharged on the account. 2 of the 3 bureaus have removed it so far. It took about 9 months. And nothing is guaranteed. Bank America is not an easy one at all. But 2 of the 3 doing the RFI and the NOE method. So that's also another option when you see this, is to go get some payment documentation from them, try and do an audit and try and find something wrong. And again, you're probably going to be able to find something wrong in their documentation. And again, if the account is here, recent balance 0, how much do they want to fight on a 0 balance account? You can bet if we continue to hammer on that, depending on the given time, probably could get that last bureau off of there. Just keep going on it.
Okay, so let me dial that back a little bit. So for those who Matt Leishro may have successfully confused, let me try to go ahead and simplify this. So he said a request for information or a notice of error. So there's a law called RESPA, R-E-S-P-A, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. And part of RESPA gives the homeowner the ability to write to a mortgage servicer, either the current mortgage servicer or a mortgage servicer who is no longer current, but within the past year, who transferred within the past year. So like in this case, if this thing hasn't been serviced since 2017, technically a qualified written request, I mean, they may still respond, but technically the way that the law is written is it's designed for you to be able to request information from your current mortgage servicer or a recent mortgage servicer. And there is also a regulation that lays on top of the RESPA law, which says, here's all the things you can ask for and they're supposed to give you. So just to give you that clarification, when Matt says a request for information, you guys can Google RESPA, R-E-S-P-A, and that's that. So the other thing, though, Alexander, you had said that they received a 1099-C. So again, this is why really it's so important. If you can think of every trade line with respect to starting with how Metro 2 actually requires complete and accurate, you realize really all Metro 2 is doing is just painting an accurate picture of the real life scenario. So you said they received a 1099-C. So to explain what a 1099-C is, it's a tax form to where if they are writing off money as a loss and canceling that debt, because what happened was, see, this doesn't even show what the original amount of this mortgage was. Okay, $118,000. Okay, so what happened was Bank of America paid somebody $118,000. So there was a real transfer of $118,000 from Bank of America, assuming they're the original creditor or when they bought the paper or whatever. But they paid $118,000, and then the consumer promised to repay them $118,000 plus interest or whatever. So at some point in time, a creditor who loses real money, so not somebody who's got like a bunch of open invoices that they're going to write off as a loss. If there's no transfer of real money, you can't do a 1099-C. But if there's a transfer of real money and you want to say, hey, you know what, Mr. Homeowner, we're canceling this debt and you don't owe us the money. Okay, so there's $118,000 that Bank of America actually gave that they're not going to get back. So they've lost real money there. So for tax purposes, they can issue what's called a 1099-C, which is a cancellation of debt notice, where they're basically putting you and the IRS on notice that they're canceling the repayment of that debt. The IRS considers that to be taxable income because you received either $118,000 or goods valued at $118,000 at their expense of actually losing $118,000. So the IRS looks at it like, okay, you basically received either $118,000 or the equivalent goods thereof. You don't have to repay it anymore. That's considered debt forgiveness taxable income. It's as if you made $118,000. Now, there are provisions under the tax code. If you're insolvent, there's forms you can fill out to tell the IRS if you receive a 1099-C, hey, I'm insolvent, and so therefore I should not be obligated to pay debt forgiveness income tax at my tax rate of 30% or whatever, 20% on $118,000. And I'm just using even numbers. Clearly, they're not going to write off the full $118,000 because if it was sold at an auction, they're going to recoup some of it. But I'm just keeping the math simple to try to explain this to you.
Alexander's got in the chat that it was $22,000 was the 1099-C from National City Mortgage.
Yeah. So again, I'm just keeping the math very simple to explain the concept. So let's say it was 22,000. So let's say they sold this thing for 98 or 96,000, and you owed 118. That's where your 22,000 comes from. Okay. So all that being said, where I'm going with that though is if the 1099-C was issued, if this thing was sold in 2017, however, down here, your historical payment, which again, I tie back to when you look at these credit reports, it's absolutely actionable to dispute stuff that they don't even give you, because a lot of these trade lines, they don't even give you any of this. Like they don't even give this on their templates. Some of them they do, some of them they don't. And this one, they do happen to give you 4 months of historical account balance information. Okay, so April of 2018 account balance shows it's 126,000. And interestingly, April, March. So interestingly, like your balance, SPA. Okay, your scheduled payment amount. Okay, so it shows that your balance is actually going down here from a. So like this is showing that there was no a payment applied. This is the scheduled payment, but your balance is going down, which is really interesting. If this thing was foreclosed in 2017, this should actually have a zero balance for each one of these months. And if this were complete information, at some point we should be able to see back here the month where this thing was sold, the balance should go from whatever the balance was to a $22,000 balance. And then when they do the cancellation of debt, they're supposed to then knock it down to a $0 balance, because the effect of that cancellation of debt 1099-C, it's saying it's transferring the taxable status of it from them to you. It's saying, okay, we've lost the money, you don't have to pay us back, and so now you don't have to pay us back, so you have a zero balance, and it's considered income on your end because you received it, and you don't have to pay us back. So again, to just help kind of visualize why it's important to base everything based on what we're teaching here on Metro 2 is because when you can really understand Metro 2 is really just a way of painting a complete and accurate picture of anything. And when you look at all the holes and you start to go back and ask the right questions, I mean, so this is not complicated, right? When you start to digest what I'm saying here, and then you can write a letter to the bureaus, whatever. I mean, try to get through their eOscar rounds 2, 3, and 4, but send a round 2 to Bank of America and ask them these questions, which are rooted in Metro 2, but then you just put an extra sentence, making it real world. It's like, well, hey, so I understand, you've got this historical account balance information, which is not reported. I'm confused because it's not reported. So now I don't know when this thing went from full balance to 22,000 at the sale. I don't even know if there was a sale. It doesn't show me. And then I don't know when it went from 22,000 to zero because you gave me a 1099-C. I've got all these questions, Mr. Data Furnisher, Mortgage Servicer. Help me to help you because I'm confused. And I'm sure you are after reading my letter too, right? And so if we can look at it like that, when we learn Metro 2, it actually helps us think through all the right questions to ask the furnishers. And again, I mean, if you go through a round 2 and a 3 and a 4 and you ask well-rooted questions and they tell you to go pound sand, I mean, this thing is ready to go to the CFPB. And if they don't delete it then, this thing would be ready to go to an attorney, if you do it like this. So does that make sense, Alexander? I don't know if you can talk right now.
I got to chime in there first.
It makes sense.
Oh, go ahead, Alexander.
Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah. Did I just give you more? Did I give you more than you were asking for, man?
No, I knew it was all wrecked up and it was horrible, but I just like on the standpoint of like how to approach it to hold them accountable, I just wasn't sure. And like I talked to like in previous groups and everything, I talked to other people and they didn't give an example or they didn't explain it the way you have. I really appreciate it. I guess now my
what you pay for
step would try to figure out how
free groups. You get free advice, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
But no, good. I'm glad you got some value. And so just to kind of sum it up, and then Matt, I know you want to say something, but by sort of sum it up, your next dispute to the CRA, I would go through your eOscar codes and I would just, I'd pick one of these bad boys that's applicable. I don't know, I pick one of them and just keep on firing dispute after dispute to the bureaus using one Oscar code after another. But that you're just trying to slip it past the goalie dude and get the delete button. But the real magic here is freaking starting to pound out the data furniture, honestly. That's really where the magic is. And tie everything back to Metro 2, when you ask them. But you don't need to sound like you're a rocket scientist, but it's like, hey, well, look, the payment history profile, which I know, by the way, is in Metro 2 field, but you don't have to be sophisticated. But look, the payment history profile is incomplete. The historical account balance is incomplete. I'm confused. I'm confused. They're showing no historical payments applied, but the scanty historical account balance that you're giving me shows that the balance is going down. So, man, I'm just all confused, Mr. Furnisher, right? And so everything you're asking is rooted in Metro 2, but it's also rooted in, because Metro 2 is rooted in the real life scenario, right? So when you start to pound out the furniture and ask them that, at that point, you just wait and see what they give you, right? And then, there's nothing that they can give you that makes this correct. And
yeah, they gave us a big old stack of like all the original documents, all the transfer documents, because initially it was National City Mortgage that owned the loan, and it's like, I kid you not, it's like over 100 pages worth of stuff that they sent.
Yeah. So what I would do
from Bank of America.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would scan every one of those pages. If you want to know what I would do if I was pissed off enough, I would scan every one of those pages and I would attach them. I would scan them into a JPEG, put those JPEGs as an exhibit in a Word document, and I would be like, and I would send a copy of this report, and I would say, "Dear Bank of America, I'm confused. It looks as though you've got a richer set of account records than you're reporting. In fact, you sent me a whole bunch of stuff that makes my head hurt. I'm sure some of the answers for accurate data reporting are in here, but I'm not the expert. It's not my system, it's yours. But can you tell me in here, why is this credit report still showing no information for anything, yet you gave me this big ass stack of 100 documents, which I'm also including with you." So, and man, send that to the CRA also, because it's,
man, I like that dispute. I'm stealing that.
That's how, that's in that case,
yeah, that's crazy. That's true. Right?
But I say papering it up, but really that's the spirit of these laws. These laws were not designed for you to just fire out 2 sentences and get a deletion. These laws were designed for you to put them on notice, right? And so that goes to the spirit of what we're talking about in this training group, which is like, are they going to read all that crap? Of course not. But then if you need to take it to the CFPB, it's like, look, CFPB, I've spent literally hours. And if you're doing a POA, right, with your letterhead, a POA that's notarized, it's like, look, I've got this professional Alex that I hired, and I'm paying this dude. Look what he did, man. He built this freaking entire file, and he's Bank of America is just giving me the runaround. I don't know what to do, CFPB. And then if they still tell you to go kick rocks and pound sand, this thing is ready to go to an attorney at that point, right? If you've gone, 3-4 rounds. But that's what I'm really saying is that's exactly the spirit of it, man. Hit the furnishers. And then no matter what they give you cannot undo the fact that this is wrong. And the fact that, if they try to fix it later, they're basically acknowledging that their first dispute reinvestigation was insignificant, was insufficient, right? Because they're not going to later produce documents from 2015 that they didn't have 2 months ago, right? That means they had the documents the whole time, they didn't fix it, right? So there's nothing that Bank of America can do you can't unscramble this egg is what I'm trying to tell you, okay? So all they can give you to unscramble the egg is going to just make it even more delicious when you eat it, right? If that makes sense. Again, I can't guarantee a deletion, but I can guarantee you that this thing, it makes sense what we're talking about, right? So Matt, did you have something I think you wanted to say or no?
I was just going to comment on the 1099-C that the 1099-C forgiveness of debt, cancellation of debt is not a true. Two things there. Number one, from a legal perspective, there's been case law that it's not legally forgiven. The creditor still has the right to go collect on it. There's case law to that point. But the point I want to make is we're in that season where our clients are getting 1099-Cs. And I try and stay in my lane, and I remember that I'm not an accountant. I'm not their accountant, but I also we get that question, and I want to advise them. When you get that 1099-C, it doesn't mean that you have to agree with the bank and the bank's accounting. So maybe you do owe, now in this case, $22,000 is a lot. That's going to be a taxable event for this guy. He probably, might owe $4,000 to $7,000 worth of tax payment based upon that 1099-C. Well, he might dispute that. And an accountant will probably advise you, this is what I tell the consumer, an accountant will probably advise you that you got the form, so you must put it on your taxes. right? You must acknowledge the fact that you got it, but you don't have to claim it as income. You can put it in the left-hand column of the tax return, not on the right where it's affecting your numbers, but on the left-hand column as a disputed 1099-C. So you're acknowledging that you have it. You didn't forget to put it in your tax return, but you're disputing whether or not it's accurate. And then so therefore you're not paying taxes on it. And maybe the consumer disputes all of it. Maybe they dispute some of it. And that's for them to talk with the accountant. But just because they have it doesn't mean that you must claim it as income. And so some people get that wrong. Hey, I got a 1099-C. I have to claim it as income. Or they'll go to the accountant and the accountant will automatically try and include it. Or they'll go to a lesser tax preparer shop, not necessarily a CPA or someone else, and they'll just see the form and they'll try and put it on there. You don't have to claim that as income. It can be disputed. You must put it on the form, but you don't have to claim it as your income.
Yeah, so if you get it, the issue that you're going to have, because a copy of that goes to the IRS and a copy goes to you. So if you're looking to dispute it on when you prepare your tax return, just know that you're going to get a nice letter from the IRS, and then you've got to be prepared to defend your position with them. And then they're going to say, well, we got this from Bank of America. So what I would say to add to what Matt's saying is if you are genuinely wanting to dispute it, you probably want to do some legwork before you file your tax return, because the IRS, because what's going to happen is they're going to be like, well, we've got this 1099-C for $22,000, which by the mechanism of that makes it taxable for you. And you didn't file a hardship form with the IRS, and you didn't, send us some stuff from Bank of America showing that, you've sued them or whatever. So just know that if you get it and you don't do your due diligence prior, then they're going to send you a letter saying, hey, our records show that you are taxable. And then so it would make sense to do everything that they're going to force you to do it beforehand. But yeah, so there are ways to get them reversed, but you have to go through a process with that. So, all right, cool. So let's kind of move along. So Becky, are you here? Looks like Becky stepped out. So we'll get back to hers, I guess, in a minute. Okay. So she can be on because I've got some questions for her. So Jajisa, we'll skip to yours real quick. So Jajisa, let's see here. You sent a little post. You requested a debt validation from Nationwide Recovery Service. The documents they sent are for your client, who's the wife, and her husband. So it's for a husband and wife. Both appear on the credit. My client informing that her husband is on her insurance. So, okay, this is allegedly an insurance issue, medical debt, but is she responsible for the debt? She's trying to qualify for a loan in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so what you're saying is, okay, so then you sent like some debt validation letter, I guess, and Nationwide Recovery said, hey, here's our cover letter, and here is statement of the account or whatever. There was 2 pages that they gave you. Okay, so 2 of them. Patient payment, $30, an adjustment. So I'm curious what this adjustment is. Is that an insurance adjustment or a goodwill adjustment? And there's a balance on that one. And then same thing, this one doesn't have a partial payment, but it has an adjustment. What is the adjustment and the balance? So, okay, so we've got that. So it sounds like there's an insurance issue because you're saying, hey, should this be on both of their credits? I guess, so I don't have an exact answer, let me first say, okay? But what I would say is what I'm seeing here is, number one, are they in a community property state? Do they not have a prenuptial? If they're in a community property state and they don't have a prenuptial, then it could appear on both of their credit reports. That being said, then it comes to the insurance situation. I don't have an exact answer on that. But I would be curious on what I'm seeing here initially to find out what these adjustments are and the balance. All that being said, okay, so you've got this medical debt. There's a pretty high probability there's a high probability if you dispute this that it depending upon how old it is. When was this thing? It was 2016. So it's 4 years old. They may delete it, right? So if it's being collected by this debt collector, they may, if you dispute it, they may delete it and recall it back up. If you've already been there and it hasn't been deleted, then you can call the debt collector and see if your client, if it needs to go like immediately. There's a number of ways you can go, man. You could do like a HIPAA request to get the original medical facility on a phone and try to squeeze them. It depends on how much time you have. And I've done some other videos on that. I know Matt has some info. You could probably get a pay for deletion of paid medical debt. Once you redispute it, they almost always get deleted. And that's because of HIPAA. So if they've got money to pay it, you're in a super hurry, that's probably a way to go. But I guess most immediately, I would say if they're in a community property state and they don't have a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement, if they don't have any sort of nuptial agreement before this medical debt was incurred, it's not a FCRA violation from my understanding for it to be reporting on both. So now it's just kind of what is your strategy to figure out why the insurance didn't pay it and if your client wants to pay it.
I agree with you, chiming in there. I agree with you that all medical debt virtually comes off the credit report once it's paid. And that's almost a foregone conclusion these days.
Yeah.
So don't worry about getting the paper delete. If you settle it and get it paid, then you should be able to get it all off there within a round. But also don't forget about reverse HIPAA on that. I keyed in on something you said that they were reporting the husband's debt on her credit report, and it might be accurate on his, but it's not accurate on hers. If they're reporting somebody else's medical debt on your credit profile, they're creating a HIPAA record. Anybody looking at your credit report thinks that that's your medical debt when in fact that medical bill belongs to somebody else. And so they could report it as a collection item. They're collecting a bill, but for them to report it as medical implies to anybody reading it that it's your medical record, and it's not. It's not your medical record. And now all of a sudden you've trapped them in a reverse HIPAA. So they've violated HIPAA by actually creating a medical record for you that's not yours. And that'll get you some leverage and might get you a reduction in the amount owed. Hey, let's just take this amount and go make it go away.
So let me back up for a second here because Matt Lee Show just rolled the steamroller over everybody. Okay, so two things. So number one is if it's a community property state, it's not necessarily an FCRA violation to report that debt on both credits. But what Matt is saying is that, however, showing it as a medical debt under HIPAA, they're now saying, well, the wife, I think, whoever the non-patient is now showing as if they had a medical debt. And so he's saying that could potentially create a HIPAA violation. So just to clarify, the HIPAA allegation versus the balance allegation, those are two separate components. So,
and then if you bring that allegation to the original hospital and to some of the doctors listed on there that they're being investigated for a HIPAA violation through the actions of their collector, you may well get them to delete that account without any money, just to avoid any further investigation of wrongdoing where they've created medical records for people by reporting medical accounts that aren't theirs. No medical doctor or hospital really wants to mess with HIPAA.
Excellent. Okay. So, Jajisa, hopefully it answers your question. If not, just shoot a message later. Okay, so then we have Deborah Murphy. She's fairly new to our group. Appreciate her for coming. She's brand new, hasn't even really started her business yet. And actually, which is really cool, we've got a few folks in here who are brand new. And I'm glad you guys are here because we definitely have the ability to train you. But so a lot of elementary questions as far as, where do I start? So, the first thing is the Credit Repair Organizations Act, 15 U.S.C. 1679. That's the law that regulates our industry. That was passed in 1996, and then in 1997, most states enacted state versions of that, which are called Credit Services Organization laws. So you want to Google Credit Services Organization for your state and see what that law is and what licensing requirements are. And then once you get once you figure out CROA and your state licensing and you get licensed, I had actually I did a call with you, Deborah. We kind of talked a little bit, but just to make this kind of more public for the Zoom, one thing that I can have conversations, and I also had a conversation, I know Becky, we talked about just structuring LLCs and stuff. Because one of the things about our industry is we are high risk as far as merchant services and banking, because of credit repair is considered high risk. It's underwritten completely different than most other industries. And so if you are going to do credit repair in another business, such as taxes or insurance or mortgages or whatever, it doesn't matter what you tell a merchant service company you do. What matters is what you actually really do. So if you get underwritten for merchant services and you do credit repair, but you don't tell them you do credit repair and you get a low risk underwriting and they find out you do credit repair, they're going to shut you off. Okay, so the way that you get around that there's no simple way to do multiple businesses when one of those is credit repair. I'll give you the full disclaimer, but for like tax and accounting purposes, which, I do taxes and bookkeeping as well. I'm happy to have these conversations with folks, but you probably want to set up two separate LLCs to kind of do, one's credit repair, one's everything else. They both have their separate merchant services. This one's high risk, this one's low risk. And then you can have another LLC tax as an S Corp that everything flows up to. So you only have to file one tax return without going into the weeds, but there's a way to do that, okay? So there's nothing easy about being a startup and having multiple businesses if you're going to do it the right way. If you do it just kind of the average way that most people, you just do everything under one company. And maybe you get busted, maybe you don't get busted. But if you have your merchant services get shut off, I'll tell you it's a pain in the ass. I actually had that once, and I told them what I was doing. I got underwritten. The guy was in my networking group, and I had a merchant service company. And one day I was collecting payments. The next day, they weren't remitting the payments into my bank account, the merchant service company, and they had let $4,700 worth of payments run the merchant service company, but they stopped giving me my payments. And I actually ended up having to sue them to get my money because they were like, we can hold it for up to a year based on the regulations. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So, I just speak from experience. And then I had to go to another company that underwrote me, which was, more legitimate for high risk. I think this first guy was just trying to get the commission, even though I told him, and he knew I did credit repair, and I put it on the form. I don't know what the hell he put on after, but that goes to show you, right? So if you're looking to keep your nose clean, the way you do it is you want to have an LLC for credit repair, another one for everything else. And there's a lot of ways you can structure it, but ultimately, unless you want to run everything through super high risk, you should have a separate LLC for your lower risk stuff. So, so Becky, you're back. I kind of skipped through your question because I know you had left, but now that you're back, you had kind of two things. So your first thing, let's see here. I want you to give me a little clarification on this first case, because you had, let's see here, where is it? Let me just open these all up. Okay, that was your second one. This is your medical thing, I think. Okay, so you had said
that one is related to this.
Oh, the medical one. This one is okay. Oh wait.
Oh no.
Yeah,
the medical is a separate thing. Sorry.
No, wait, okay. All right, so this is the medical one. My bad. Yeah, this one here. Okay.
No, that one is related to the printouts, but the medical is a totally separate thing.
Okay, so let's start with this. So this is what you had sent me, and I wasn't really exactly sure what you were trying to say here. So let's just move this aside, and you can just walk me through it. Okay, so is this related to this?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got, all right, so let me move this out of the way here first of all. Okay, so really quickly then, paint me the scenario of what we're looking at, what the situation is.
Okay, so, and this is just information from the client. So he has this Liberty Bank account, and it's for the $33,702, and he said this was a joint account. It was to start a business with his ex-wife, and then he has another Liberty account that I sent you a picture of for $30,300, and then he has a separate account that's an SBA loan with a balance that's 800 something, or 8,720.
I guess I don't think I got that $30,000 one for some.
I might not have sent it the right one.
33,702. Yeah, I think you sent me like, I don't know. I think I've
two of the same.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not the same account, but the balance.
So there's one account for 33,000, and there's a separate one for 30,000, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so these were with a bank, Liberty Bank, that was bought out by a different bank.
Okay.
And so it shows transferred. Obviously, one of them says open, and there's that's different. But then the SBA account, he said that the account that was with Liberty Bank for the $30,300 was the same account as the SBA account, and which was really confusing to me because they had totally different account numbers, and he was just adamant that it was this amount. Well, then he sent that picture of Credit Karma to me where it shows the amount. If you pull it up, it shows the amount of the 30,300, and then the balance is now the 8,720, which was the SBA account balance. So all three were reporting, but apparently both of those, the Liberty Bank one and the SBA, were the same account.
Yeah, so I guess I would need to see because I don't have, I guess, the other trade line.
Okay. Here, let me see if I can grab it real fast.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly write to the creditor and find out. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if this isn't really like a credit reporting issue to start with, like if we're trying to figure out, I mean, how many actual accounts do we have? That would be a poor choice to dispute that with the CRAs first. First, you would want to do like either a state law or a 1681 S-2A furnisher direct dispute and request, say, hey, look, I'm just confused because do I have two of these or do I have one of these? Please give me your records. And I mean, that's a legitimate use of, I don't use the word legitimate like anything we're doing is illegitimate, but that's a legitimate use on an actual debt basis to use these laws and figure out what's going on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, because if you're like, look, my client's confused and I'm confused and Steven's confused, everybody's going to be confused. And so the way to unconfuse, I would say, number one, you want to sit down and actually just lay out what the facts are from the client, right? And a lot of times that's hard to do because they don't know what you've got to ask them the right questions. And then if you can figure out what they think the facts are, then you can look at actually what you have as evidence, which is a credit report, and say, okay, this credit report doesn't make sense for the following reasons. I've got two trade lines reporting. Is that what you're saying? There's basically like two trade lines?
Right. He has three total that I didn't dispute because of, I didn't know which accounts were even, legitimate or not.
Right. I mean, so that would probably be a good reason to go to the furnisher first. I mean, and the dude could probably make a phone call, right? I mean, just call him up and say, hey, customer service, I'm a little confused, what's going on? I mean, so it wouldn't take him a lot of work to figure out what's going on. If the guy doesn't know what's going on, first we need to figure out what's going on before we dispute it, I guess, if that makes sense.
He was reluctant because that's actually what I requested that he do. He was reluctant because he said this 8,720 was actually a repo, but they never reported it as such. They just reported it as like a transfer.
What does he want you to do?
Well, I told him that I didn't feel that we should dispute these because of that reason. He didn't really want to find out the correct information. That's kind of how I went about it. But
so what does he want you to do? Why is he paying you? Or I guess he's not paying you. You're doing your trial clients now. But what
right. He's
one. I mean, if he's like, okay, look, I'm going to hide my little head in a hole like an ostrich. Please don't call these people and do your job, Becky. So how can I on the Zoom help you to help him if he doesn't want you to help him?
Right. I mean, I did dispute other accounts. He had a lot of other accounts that I could dispute. These are the ones I told him I didn't feel comfortable disputing because I was, there's a high risk he could get sued for the amount. And, I didn't know I didn't have all the information. He was confused. But I mean, whenever, I guess a new question would be is if a client does, okay, Matt, go ahead.
I was waiting. I have been doing the third party stuff for, 12-ish years now. And I will tell you, and I have no way to back this up, but our clients who we represent in the third party don't often get sued. And sometimes when they do get sued, we track it back to they filed the lawsuit a month before they retained us. It's rare. I mean, literally like count on one hand the time that clients get sued when they're represented. Nobody wants to sue someone who's already represented. So I would still go after this with my experience of that experience that the client probably won't get sued if we're doing it in the third party. And then, I know the first slide Stephen put up there, I don't really care what happened. And half the time I don't listen to the clients anymore. I shouldn't tell you that. Half the time, they'll confuse you about what happened with these things. And that one thing I saw something very simple, the mismatch payments, that's on time in one bureau and late on the next. Let's do a standard 623 request, ask for documentation, ask them to update and make sure it's accurate. And then as soon as that investigation's finished, we're going to hammer them with how can the account be on time at this bureau and late at another bureau. And then we're going to try and drive that with a third party letter saying, hey, we've caught you reporting erroneous information. You reported it on time to this bureau and you reported it late to that bureau. clearly you're at fault for not doing a proper investigation immediately to remove this account. That's the first one. The second one that you had there with the $8,000, that one's still on the screen, with the $8,700 balance, we're going to go ahead and request documentation. What is this? Send us back the contract that established the account and all payment history. And then depending upon what they write us back is where we go with it. Right now, I don't really know what we're going to do with this account until we get stuff back. We don't really know what we have to fight with because they haven't gotten anything. But I find more times if you give them rope, they'll hang themselves, to use that old expression. Let them send you all the documents. You will be amazed at the stuff that comes back that's wrong. And then we'll decide how we're going to go ahead and attack it. Nothing right here on this screen, $8,700 charge-off account sticks out and says, hey, this is wrong. But, how much you want to make a bet? We get that documentation back and there's something that we can find. And if you're timing it, because you're disputing with both the credit bureau and the creditor, there is a likelihood that you said something about the bank being taken out or transferred. So then maybe they don't respond because it's old. They can't put their hands on the original records. And maybe they don't respond to the eOscar dispute simply because they're doing their own internal investigation, trying to get you documents. And then it comes off there for that reason. So you still have a good likelihood of success on this. I would do it in the third party because that minimizes the consumer's, chances of getting sued there. And I would just go hammer it.
So real quick, I'm sorry, go ahead, Becky.
No, I was just going to clarify because now that we're talking about that. So there were the 3 separate accounts. He disputed the SBA account, which is the $8,720. He disputed that prior to me helping him. And he just got a notification that it was closed out, that his dispute got it closed. And then they transferred that balance to the $30,300. So that's why it's showing that now. So it's basically he had the 2 accounts plus the SBA. They went ahead and deleted the SBA, but he said it dropped his score like 50 something points.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Neither. I don't know.
So did you say he had a repo? Did I hear you say repo somewhere?
The SBA, yeah, that was a repo.
What did they repo?
It was farm equipment.
Okay, I mean, it's not really a, I mean, I don't think that would be a repossession. I mean, if they had that.
I was going to say, that's a great argument right there. You get those documents back and all of a sudden I'm sorry, this is a business loan? And it's on my personal credit report?
I'm sorry, it's the other loan then, the $33,000. That was the repo.
See, this is 160 months, so this is some sort of a long-term loan, whatever.
Right, that was a business loan. That him and his ex-wife got a business loan, and that's the one that he was disputing that got deleted. But then they tacked on that $8,700 to the one that's not showing the other Liberty Bank.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't have enough information. I mean, there's nothing in here that shows that this is a repo or anything like that.
Right. That's what he said. He said it was, but they never.
That they clearly knew this was for business purposes and shouldn't be on his personal credit report. That may be a good argument.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, though, I wouldn't do anything that he doesn't want you to do, right? So, I mean, if you've got control over this guy for which you are disputing, but he's like, Becky, I'm paranoid, don't talk to these people. I mean, he doesn't really, I mean, just being candid, he doesn't really sound like a very good client. And again, I know you're just starting your business and you're practicing on how you can, but I mean, as we run business models, if a guy's like, oh, well, I've got bad credit and I want you to improve my score, but I don't want you to dispute half my negative stuff because I'm paranoid. Those are not good clients, right? So, I mean, that being said, obviously you're working on the guy. If he's like, Becky, I don't want to hear your logic and reason, I don't want to talk to them, then just don't do this and just say, I want you to understand though that, you may not get the results you want if I can't work on all of them. So that would be my conclusion, would just be, make sure you don't do anything that the client doesn't want you to do, right? I mean, last thing.
That's true. You always have to, you're working for behalf of the client, but to some degree, the clients need us to mold them. This is my job. This is what I do. So I'm going to try and tell that guy that, hey, listen, hire me. I think I can help you. There's always a chance you could get sued. I mean, that could happen. It's a small chance, but it's there. But I really think I can do some benefit. I really think we can clean this up. I'd like you to pay me. I'd like you to hire me. Let's face it. That's what we're trying to do. And there is a risk. So I'm going to let the guy know there's a small chance you could get sued by this. But even if you do, we'll probably uncover a lot of things that could help defend you in the lawsuit when we request this documentation of stuff that they're reporting wrong or doing wrong, or giving you plenty of ammunition to defend yourself. So I still would try and get him to hire me.
Yeah, so I mean, again, if you can get him to do Matt's thing, and if he's like, okay, cool, Becky, but if he's still like, dude, I don't want you to do this, then don't do it, right? I mean, so it depends on what kind of control you've got over the guy ultimately.
Right, and I mean,
or if he hired you for those other ones and you did pretty well on them, you may come back and visit these for an extended contract. Hey, now you saw how good we were on that stuff. Are you ready to go ahead and attack this stuff?
Right, and that's when I pulled his report through, because when he sent it to me, it almost sounded like he was upset. And the thing is that I did not dispute any of those accounts because I didn't feel comfortable yet with the information that I had. And he didn't want me to, and right. I don't have a POA with him. So obviously I couldn't contact anybody, but I got his IDQ report, and it's totally different. Like the scores are totally, and I know that happens, but I wasn't sure why the Credit Karma was updated with that deleted account, but the IDQ report also showed it deleted, but the scores were completely different, like off like 70 points.
Well, they probably use different scoring models,
Okay.
That's probably what that is. But okay, so are we good on that one for right now? And we go to your next question?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so you also posted up something about a medical debt. You called the medical service provider to see if they'll do a payment plan. And the hospital or service provider said that they have, quote unquote, the account is in collections, but it's in, quote unquote, exhausted status, whatever in the world that means. So a payment plan could not be set up.
Right. It's not in collections yet, they said.
Okay, it's not in collections, but it's in exhausted status, and they won't take a payment plan. So this is the medical facility that's having this conversation, right? So, I mean, I guess number one is, what I would say is, okay, under what authority do they have, to collect the debt, but also to not give you a payment plan? And what do they mean by exhausted? So I guess, what I would first do is say, okay, you know what? Send me a statement of account and send me what documentation you have on file with me, like signed documentation, right? Because if you're a medical facility and you're sitting here telling me that you've got some authority to tell me I can't go on a payment plan, I mean, if you're not wanting to play ball with me, Mr. Medical Facility, I'm here calling you, wanting to get on a payment plan. And if you're giving me the middle finger, okay, tell me what authority you have to do that, right? Show me something with my signature when I checked into the ER or whatever in the world it was, to where you can, what are your terms, right? I mean, you may have an internal policy. I don't really care about your policy. I care about, what authority do you have to do that? So, I mean, that's probably where I would start with these folks. If they're not wanting to play ball and they're like, and then also, how is it, what do you mean by exhausted? If it's not in collections, does it have to be in collections for you to give me a payment term? And again, but always back to, what is your authority for this, right? I mean, if you're telling me you're not going to work with me, that goes contrary to the wind that is blowing through Congress, because Congress is trying to whack these people over the head with the bill that passed the House. It died in the Senate, but with, the overhaul to the FCRA. And this goes contrary to that Attorney General settlement agreement we talked about last week, where medical debts that are paid for by insurance companies are supposed to be deleted once they're paid for. So you tell me, Mr. Medical Facility Provider, where this authority is, because what you're telling me goes against the winds of change that are happening. And so do I need to call the CFPB or whatever, right? And that's where I would start, I guess, because really, what is the contract that allows them to tell you what your terms are if they're not going to play ball? That's what I would say. What are your thoughts on that? And Matt, if you've got something to chime in as well.
I like your idea that, hey, okay, then I tried to work with you. I'm recording this conversation. I tried to work with you, and you don't want to work with me, then I guess we'll go forward. And then from there, keep the correspondence. When that collector sends a letter, let's go ahead and analyze that and see if there's an FDCPA violation in that letter. It may not even, just because they send it to collections, not all collection companies report to the credit report, so it still may not go on the credit report. There's lots of stuff that may happen from here. You can even send in a third-party letter. We're representing the consumer. All future correspondence should go through us, and then when they send it to the collector should be sending the dunning letter to you, because you're the representation. If they send it to the consumer, that could be construed as an FDCPA harassment. by contacting the consumer directly and not through the representation. So there's lots of pitfalls for them too. So because what I do for a living, I'd probably say, yeah, send it to collection because it doesn't bother me. Then again, you might have a guy who has a business and it could wreck his world and whatever. So they may have a different standpoint, but I don't like the fact that they're saying either pay it in full because when it goes to collection, they're probably going to take a settlement on it. So any idea, Becky, how big is it? How big of an account is it?
I think it was like $44.
Yeah. Let it go to collection. It's small enough. Let's go have some fun with it.
With the medical provider, and I mean, just to be clear, what Matt's mentioning would require it to go to a third-party debt collector. So FDCPA
Right.
in its current status is not applicable because this is an original creditor.
Right.
However, if you do actually formally dispute the debt with them and they transfer it to a debt collector, the debt collector should report it as in dispute because that dispute status follows the transfer, and which could then be a FDCPA violation as well. But I mean,
and not just that, but you should get the representative should get the Dunning letter. It shouldn't go to the consumer. It should go to you as their representative. You've been informed that you're handling that matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So-
that's why I was confused when they said that even if they made payments, because it's not in collections, if they made payments, that it would not stop it from going into collections.
And I would be careful that make payments. Remember that could reset the statute of limitations by which they could be sued.
Yeah, is this
So
a
I'm
recent?
always leery of that.
It's
I'd much
recent.
rather.
Is this a
It was
recent?
last year.
Yeah. All right. I'd still
I mean-
rather than not reset the statute of limitations on that lawsuit by making a payment. I'd still rather have them wait, save up enough money to pay it off in full, settle it in full, or what have you, but not a partial payment.
Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna send them a HIPAA request. You're gonna let them know who their mommy is. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna send them a HIPAA request. Check out those 2 sections of the CFR that we went over last time. You know what? I'll just pull it up here because we've probably got a lot of new folks here. Let's see here. Let them know who their mommy is. All right, Becky. You can tell them that you're gonna tell them that you've been coached by Uncle Steven and Big Daddy Matt. All right, let's see here.
I'll print off a picture and send it to them as well, so they know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, so 45 CFR 164.522. Here, I'll just pull it up. There's these 2 provisions. I did this on a prior video. All right. So the CFR is the Code of Federal Regulations that further defines the law, which the law is HIPAA, HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Oh, so there's, let's see, 45 CFR. Yeah. You know what? Because they're not the only ones who can decide to play ball hard. You know what I mean? So I mean, if they pissed you off, then you could do that. So there's 2 provisions that I would hit them the first time around. One is you have the patient, the insured has the ability to request that they notify you, the people with whom, or that they protect your health information, notice of privacy practices, and they give that to you. So one is to force, let me pull the other one up real quick and then we'll go through both of them. Okay. Oh, 520, that's why it was wrong, 522. Okay, all right, this is where it is. So 522, right to request privacy protection for protected health information. So you have the right as an insured to request that they don't disclose your information to certain people, except those people that they are required to. Now, they are not obligated to honor this request, understand that, okay? But this does put you in front of their person who's in charge of HIPAA and is in charge of keeping them from getting sued for violating HIPAA. So it gets you in front of somebody who actually gives a rat's ass about keeping them from getting sued and getting the doctor from getting sued for HIPAA. Okay, so you can say, hey, look, I want you to go ahead and protect my personal private information and to not disclose to third parties. And oh, by the way, in addition to that, I know that I've got the right for you to request you to send me an accounting or a list of everybody to whom you disclose personal information. Again, there are certain exceptions if you read through this. So there are certain people that they can disclose your health information to that they're not required to give to you under this request. But, basically say, hey, I want you to, number one, protect my private information. Number two, I want you to tell me everybody to whom you've disclosed it. And let's just kind of start from there. If they're a medical facility provider. And what this is going to do is this is going to get you in their HIPAA department in front of somebody who gets trained on HIPAA, and their only job is to keep them from getting sued and keep the doctor from getting sued. And the doctor's E&O insurance and malpractice insurance and all that kind of stuff. And the point is if they want to play ball, you ratchet this thing up. And so what I would say, at this point, if it's a fairly new debt and they're telling you to go pound sand and whatever, this would probably be the first thing to just ratchet it up if the consumer wants to do it. I mean, you could do it too on a, whatever, but if there's a POA, I mean, for 300 and something bucks, honestly, maybe they should just pay it, who knows? But if they want to fight, this is how it would start the fight. Start it in their HIPAA department. Let them know that at least you're not playing games, and just keep on. And then we can talk about strategies from there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking, but the fact that they said even if it's paid in, they can't pay it in full right now, but even if they'd have to pay it in full to avoid collections. So that just lets me know they're willing to take a payment. So for them to say, no, we're not going to set up a payment plan, you know what I mean? That's
because here's what's going to happen. This is going to go to the HIPAA lady, and then the HIPAA lady I say lady, how sexist of me, the HIPAA person, right? It's going to go to the HIPAA person. It's going to go to the hippopotamus. We'll just call him hippopotamus. It's going to go to the HIPAA person, and then, you may very well be able to get that thing escalated up to the desk of their supervisor, right? I mean, so again, this is because this hits them a lot harder than they don't care if you freaking, sue their debt collector or whatever, but this is a whole different thing. You know what I mean? It's like, look, man, okay, I'm going to start here, Mr. Medical Service Provider, and then I'm going to get from you the paperwork where you're saying I actually agree to this, or show me the law, right? Show me the state statute maybe that authorizes you to collect without a signature or whatever, right? Because again, I'm not a medical law expert, but I mean, there may be laws that say, hey, if you go into the hospital and they don't have a signature, again, I don't know, but my point is start here with somebody who's trained on this and they know that you're serious, and be cool about it, but say, look, you know what? I mean, I was trying to be nice, you guys weren't, and so I'm just going to start to use the tools to figure out what's going on. So first, I'd like to get the disclosure, and I want you to protect my information, and we're just going to start from here and find out, what you got going on, and we'll just go from here until you acquiesce or I lose, one of the two. So
then I just need to send a letter with just the request for the disclosure.
Yes, certified mail. Yeah, you can send
okay.
Mail. I would send it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just read through these two sections of the code, and so does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Any other questions on this then?
Nope, that's all I needed.
Is that all you needed?
Oh, for this, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so then let's see, Noble Buchanan, basically. So Noble's been fighting that jet ski deal. Bless your heart, man. And it was reporting on Equifax, and we've gone back and forth talking. And so Noble had asked me, okay, so if in fact, in reality, a data furnisher reports a complete payment history of positive and negative, if that's a reality, you get your paper Equifax report, which has no positive payment histories, only negative payment history, because that's what their paper reports print. Is that accurate reporting, and who's liable? And that's a really good question, right? So if it comes down to it, if you were to sue everybody, with furnisher would most, and again, I'm not giving legal advice, just from my experience as an expert witness, having had clients go through this scenario, what'll probably happen is the furnisher will proof up some sort of internal records and say, well, look, we've furnished a complete payment history, and based on your dispute, we dispute it. We've done our part. We have furnished a complete and accurate payment history. It's all Equifax's fault. Then it kind of goes to, okay, well, I mean, how much does a data furnisher have to participate with the consumer reporting agency in that reinvestigation to make sure that the consumer reporting agency is reporting accurate information. I think that's pushing it probably too far. If the furnisher can demonstrate that they've reported accurate information, it falls on basically on Equifax at this point. And Equifax would be the one who's giving you an inaccurate report. And a credit report without any positive payment history reported is absolutely an inaccurate report. And again, I mean, if you were to take that to any reasonable person and a reasonable judge and say, Judge, I've got 2 years of negative payment history, but this is a 6-year-old account. Where's my 4 prior years of positive payment history? Certainly, Judge, you can see how this can have a negative impact on my score if, in fact, they're not reporting any of my 4 years of good history, just my 2 years. I mean, that's the kind of thing where, at least, again, I can't speak for a judge. They're all different. It's kind of like a wild card when you actually go through the system. But that's the way you need to think, is if you're going to present it to a judge, how can you make a reasonable argument and pin it back to damages, right? I mean, look, I'm trying to get some financing, and they're only reporting 2 years of negative history. They're not reporting my prior 4 years of prior positive history. Judge, you can see how, I mean, this can't be positively affecting me, right? And so I don't know who's at fault or what the scores are. It's a big mystery, Judge. I'm just asking, I asked them to give me a complete payment record. They didn't, and they didn't delete it. And so now I continue to be damaged because my score is still a 550 because this thing is continue to report inaccurately when they didn't fix it or delete it within 30 days. They can't continue to report it inaccurately after 30 days. That violates the statutory deadline. And so really now it's false information, Judge, because they can't go back now, a year later and not sue them and fix it, because then they will have acknowledged that they didn't conduct a reasonable reinvestigation the first time, which is exactly why I sued them. So hopefully you followed that. But basically, if Equifax gives you a paper report with no positive payment history, it is an inaccurate report. And it comes down to just how you frame that up and kind of leverage everything you're learning here to put your dispute together. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that didn't confuse the crap out of you even more. And if you have any more questions, let me know. Matt, do you have anything else to chime in on that one, bro?
No, all good.
Okay. All right, cool. So Sam had sent a couple good cherries here that I want to just kind of go over as well. So real quick, I guess, so first, Sam, and I've redacted some of these here. So here's a notice from Equifax. I've gotten a few of these as well, basically saying we have no record. We are unable to locate a credit file in our database with the identifying information you sent us. I've gotten this a few times too. I'm curious if this is a result of the shenanigans they're going through because of their data breach. But yeah, I mean, basically what they're saying is proof of identification. We want a pay stub with a full social security number, not a pay stub with XXXXX and then the last 4 digits. So pay stub with the full social, a W-2 with the full social or a valid social security card. And then proof of your current address, which they had put it here. I've redacted that out. So yeah, I mean, I've gotten a few of these too. So I don't know what's causing this. Matt, do you have any more feedback? Have you seen these pop up lately? For Equifax?
Kind of reminds me of the old suspicious letters from Experian. Just stall. They're trying to run some stalls and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, so what I would say is try to see if you can get a W-2 with a full social. I mean, I send in a social affidavit, like you guys know. I mean, I get an affidavit that validates their social and one that validates their address, along with the POA. And sometimes I've had a few of these kicked as well, which is crazy. So all I can say is, yeah, they've kicked it. Try to send them what they want. And what you may also want to do, actually, I've started doing this recently. When I do the credit file request by mail, I'll send duplicate copies 2 different days to the big 3 bureaus, and I'll have a letter like this come from one of the letters, and the next day I'll get the credit file disclosure and I'll send them to 2 different addresses. So I've started doing that just because of this ridiculousness exactly right here. And so sometimes it just depends upon the person that got it. I would not recommend sending duplicate versions of your disputes. I mean, you could do that, and just note that under the law, if they receive additional information when you send them a dispute, then that gives them an extra 15 days. So, I mean, if for whatever reason they keep kicking your disputes, if you want to try the strategy of sending a dispute to one address today and the same exact dispute to a different address tomorrow, there's nothing to keep you from doing that, and note it that will give them 45 days instead of 30. But what I would say for right now is Try to see if you can get them something here that they're looking for. See if you can mail that to 2 different addresses and see if you can get that through the system. But I don't have any magic answer because I've seen those as well. And you had sent a couple really good examples that kind of really tie on what we were talking about earlier as far as credit reports. You had a whole freaking boatload of these Amexes. This is really exactly kind of like Alexander's deal that we had talked about earlier. But basically, they updated them here in 2020, January 12th of 2020. And there ain't no payment history for 5 years, man. This is unacceptable. Every one of these, dude. I mean, you've got, your client has a freaking just ton of these. And so the guy at Amex was just like, oh, we're going to update this, but nothing is complete here and reported at all. So there really is no, I mean, if we were to have a 3-dimensional disclosure of all the data, we would probably see that there's nothing in there for those 5 years, no, balances for those months and everything. So this is entirely unacceptable. What I would do is I would go through the eOscar, like we had talked about earlier, and just round 2, 3, 4 for the bureaus, just pick one code to just try to freaking keep them from kicking it. But I would pound out American Express and be like, dude, how in the world are you saying that this is the current status and this is complete and accurate when literally you've given me no payment history for 5 years? Now, you had said, because we had kind of talked a little bit yesterday on this, you're like, hey, this guy lives in New York and it's like a 7-year statute of limitations and he's got a bunch of balances and he's afraid of getting sued. Okay, I mean, I can appreciate that he's afraid of getting sued, but you know what? I mean, that's the beauty of working these consumer protection laws the right way, is that if you can work them the right way, and these companies are in fact out of compliance and violating them, you got leverage, right? I mean, so if these guys want to go ahead and all of a sudden sue your consumer for a $27,000 bill, again, I'm not giving legal advice, but if you've done your job right through a few rounds, proper, really well rounds, then I don't see why your consumer would not be able to counterclaim them. And a counterclaim is if you get sued, the person that you're suing can basically essentially sue you back, but it's within the same lawsuit. It's what's called a counterclaim. They can find charges and hit you with them. So, I mean, in reality, if these guys want to be punitive and sue you because you're asking them to validate their crap, at least you're now setting them up to where they can do counterclaims, which is going to, at least, if they're getting sued, try to negotiate something, right? So I certainly get it. Hey, this guy's got, whatever, $50,000 or $100,000 in charge off credit cards. It's within the statute of limitations. He doesn't want to get sued, man. I totally get that. And it's good that you're thinking that way. But also, this is just blatantly inaccurate credit reporting also. And so I think we have to leverage our clients' understanding of what our next steps can be versus what they have to settle for. And I'll let you chime in here in a minute on these, Sam. I just want to go through a few because you sent a few goodies. So here's actually a pretty good one. And this is a Bank of America, which, again, this was TransUnion, but they give a nice, they give you all this, historical data here, which is pretty cool, okay? But there is some missing information here, I mean, again, we start to go back to 2017, it becomes less relevant, but this is to visually show all of you guys and hear, really more what that 3-dimensional picture of a complete credit reporting should look like, right? I mean, every freaking trade line, every single one has all this on a monthly basis, and even more fields that they don't even give you, but all this on a monthly basis. So, whenever you look at one of these little reports that's just all scanty, just note it, that is an incomplete credit report, right? Okay, so
that looks like they started to report the additional balance and payment data in August of 2017.
Probably so. Yeah.
Prior to that, they weren't reporting it.
Yeah. Well, but this is going to be reported. I mean, it needs to be reported in their system because every month when they push it, they need to know what the scheduled payment is. But somehow, so I don't know what happened, honestly. I mean, that's a good point, Matt. It's like what happened, but they can't report a piece of data every month without. I mean, the amount paid, at least it has to be zero, right? Like, I mean, at least it has to be like there's not no information every month.
I think that might be because, this is all the time series payments, the trended data, and that all started somewhere around 2017. So that might be that's just when they started to report the additional data under that system.
Well, and so
I think that's what it might be.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, so it's going to be in their computer, and if it's not in their computer, it's inaccurate, right? Because Metro 2 is their standard. The trended data has to do with the consumer reports that they prepare for the mortgage companies. So providing richer data to the consumer reports. But, I mean, they can't be reporting information that's not, I mean, so July of 2017, what was the balance, right? You see what I'm saying? So like this balance has to have something here for this month when they reported, right? So what really happened is they did not report it for these months. That's what it looks like, except there is charge off. So I don't know what the hell happened. But my point in showing you guys this one was to see like this top part. This is a really good example of what it, with respect at least to this, what accurate reporting should look like for a trade line. You also had a Ford account here, Sam. And on this Ford account, so you're missing a month here, but what's interesting is that in February of 2018, it was current, and it shows that the scheduled payment amount was $679. And then they were reported 30, 60, and 90, but all of this historical data is not here. And at some point, it went from having a scheduled monthly payment of 679 to, okay, it got charged off and it no longer has a monthly payment, okay, because now they zeroed it out, but now it put the whole balance, it accelerated the entire balance. The entire balance is past due, okay? So at some point between here and here, which is probably at this month, because this is when it charged off, but I just wanted to point that out again so you guys can kind of visualize and see when you get the historical data, it actually paints a picture of what's going on, which is exactly what credit reporting is supposed to do, which is why when we look at all these scanny ass trade lines, like this little EOS collection here, which, I mean, dude, nothing. It's got nothing down here. No payment histories, no historical data. You can't tell what in the world is going on with this thing, right? So that's why I say, you know, and this is obviously the result of their template and what they're giving you. And so we've got to just be able to figure out what type of fight we're fighting. I mean, are we fighting, okay, you've given us the data so you can see that it's inaccurate versus, well, you haven't given us as a result of your procedures, and so it's going to be a much harder argument for me to make to you, Mr. Credit Bureau. But it still is an argument, absolutely, right? But if they're not,
I point out something on that one too. If you look at the very first two payments down the bottom, December 2017, January 2018, amount of payment 0 and 0 for those 2 months. If they really didn't make a payment, you would have been 30 days late the next month. So to have $0 for the amount paid is has to be wrong. I see the balance going up there, you know, but if you miss that whole payment, that balance, I don't know if that could be right.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because then the balance went up because there was no payment potentially, but it only went up. Maybe it went up the interest amount. Yeah, it went up the amount of interest probably because it went up like $200, even though the payment's $679. So it went up. But yeah, it's not showing 30 days delinquent. But then it goes back down. Like maybe he made a payment, but it doesn't. Okay, so yeah, he did make a payment, so it went back down. So I mean, yeah, you're right. See, old eagle eyes over here, Matt Lisho, you know, focusing in, and that goes to show you, right? And look, this just hits it home, man. If this trade line were, you know, like this EOS as an example, even though this is a collection, but if they did not give you this historical data, we would not know what's going on, right? And that's why they don't give it to you, because I mean, believe me, these things are freaking scientifically engineered to give you as little as you want, but for them to say that they're compliant. So that's where, you know, again, the methodology we're talking is, you know, I'll dispute that they don't give me the historical data. Unfortunately, because they don't give it, I can't actually analyze it. But in this case, they did give it. We can see all these holes and we can see, okay, well, why is this? Absolutely, it seems inaccurate. And so then you can do your follow-up, you know, to the CRA, and you can do your pull out the eOscar, and then, you know, which one of these is the payment history? Let's see here. Yeah, okay. So eOscar code 106 disputes present or previous account status, payment history profile, or payment rating. Okay, so the payment history profile would be this right here. Okay, your payment history profile. So I mean, you can send in around 2 and just freaking be like, dude, the historical payment history profile seems to be inaccurate. More specifically, from what I can tell, January 2018 seems illogical when compared with the fact that you're reporting no payment. Please delete because you didn't fix it the first time. And then you can also send that maybe written a little bit nicer or differently to the furnisher and be like, look, I've got all these. What I would do is I would send a master dispute to the furnisher with all of your problems, honestly, because the furnishers don't have like this OCR. They don't have like this system that you're trying to circumvent, like on the bureau side. I mean, the furnishers are going to have somebody actually get your letter and figure it out, right? And they're the ones that have all the original records, and they're the ones that you owe the money to. So, as far as rounds 2, 3, and 4, trying to slip one past the goalie on the bureau, okay, maybe you do a laser-focused dispute where you hope that they push this button, and then if not, whatever, if it comes back verified or whatever, freaking, I don't know, a number 108 disputes the account type or the terms duration or terms frequency or the portfolio type. Oh, the portfolio type. Well, we've already established on our prior Zooms that TransUnion and Experian never even give you, the portfolio type for this one. They call it the account type, even though the account type is a separate Metro 2 field. This is actually the portfolio type. I mean, so again, if you're trying to structure an argument to get them to push a different eOscar code and not lying to them, you can say, I'm confused because you don't give me anything on here with a heading that says portfolio type. I dispute that you're not giving me a portfolio type. Well, I mean, I can tell you based on my reason and logic, I'm 99% positive that what they call the account type is the portfolio type. But again, it's dangerous when we make assumptions, right? Because all I can really do is go off of what they said. So again, what I'm saying is, if we're trying to, go as many cycles as we can with the bureaus, okay, well, we can do a 106 dispute, very simple, very laser focused. Payment history is inaccurate for the following reasons. You failed to correct it the first time, please delete it. Then after that, around 3 or whatever, you can do a 108 dispute, portfolio type is not reported. I mean, based on what I can tell, you haven't given it to me. And so they're going to be like, oh, portfolio type, 108, boom, and push that over. So the goal there would be to keep them from kicking it as frivolous, right? And just to keep on cycling through on the CRA side. But then round 2 on the furnisher, I would take everything here and I would word this in a well-crafted, plain English, here's what all my problems are. And you can see what my problems are, so please provide original account records and everything. And you would do that to the bureaus under either a state law version, if you've got a powerful state law that lets you talk to the original creditors, or what Matt calls a 623, which is the FCRA section, but it's actually in the US code, it's 1681 S-2A, would be a furnisher direct dispute. So it's the same thing, it's just whether you're citing FCRA or US code. So it would be a 1681 S-2A dispute, which is a furnisher direct dispute. And there are regulations that the CFPB created that actually basically keep them from just wiping their booty with when the consumer disputes it to them. So that's how I would handle these. And let's see, I think that you had a few more examples real quick I wanted to go through, and then I'll let you chime in. Let's see. Yeah, so the Experian report was kind of the same thing here. So Experian, again, your Amex, a whole bunch of no datas. So, but this is the same thing on Experian. Your Amex, they gave you some historical on your template, but they're all no datas. This bad boy only has like one freaking month down here. February 2020 is a charge off. It was open to 2015, no data. And then there was a collection on here I wanted to actually show you guys, which I thought was kind of cool, because this goes to show you this Collection Bureau of Hudson Valley actually on their template, they've actually provided all of this historical data, even though it's no data, right? So most of the collections, they don't ever give this to you, but this one they did, which again, just to demonstrate to you guys, let's say this one did not give this to you. You can certainly dispute it. It's not what they give you necessarily, but also what they should be giving based on Metro 2. This is how an accurate collection should be reporting on a monthly basis here, but it's interesting. So for collection purposes, based on Metro 2, a collection account is considered opened when it goes to the collection agency. So December 17 is when its thing evidently went to the collection agency. However, there's no payment history profile. So basically it sat on their desk for like 4 months before they put this thing into their Metro 2 system and then started updating it monthly. So, I mean, you can certainly, again, my round one is just freaking hit everything, right? My standard, 15 or so fields, which you guys are starting to see here, right? Just freaking hit for everything. And then, you could do a round two, like we talked about eOscar. What was it, 106 or 108 code? Let's see here. So, you can go your eOscar and be like, yeah, I mean, 106 code, my payment history profile, round two could be payment history profile is incomplete for the following reasons, because, well, you show that it was opened in December of 2017, but you haven't started reporting it until May of 2018. And so what happened to it, right? And again, I mean, this is going to be an argument that would be a much harder argument to take to a judge, because they're like, okay, where's your damages really? But again, keep in mind that what is our goal? Our goal is to structure valid, legitimate arguments that are technically correct arguments to the CRAs round after round. Also using what we know their system is with eOscar, right? But then when you go to the furnisher, you can certainly, pound the freaking furnisher and like, look, I mean, give me a statement of account. Do you have a complete statement of account? You've got holes here. You're showing us 298 here in May of, that the account balance in May of 2018 was 298, but you're showing you opened it in 2017 with the original amount of 298. I mean, so the original amount and your first balance payment are the same. But I mean, what happened in here? Give me a complete statement of account, Mr. Mr. Debt Collector. So again, just keep in mind there's a distinction between the continuous secondary, third, fourth rounds to the bureaus, which again, we want to be absolutely legit, right? I mean, because you don't want to send some garbage and then this thing goes to a judge and the judge is like, dude, what did you send? So I mean, if you send a subsequent round, it's like, dude, I mean, you guys clearly didn't fix my first round, okay? So I'm not saying that. I'm saying this thing shouldn't even be reported now because you have no provision to continue to report inaccurate data. However, since you are continuing to report it, my round two is going to be a 106 dispute. Boom. My round three can be a 108 dispute or something like that, right? And so when you show that, if you were to show that to a judge, I mean, at least the fact pattern of your dispute, it's still logical and consistent, and it's not like you're sending some crazy ass thing that is, if you were to sue these folks, and all this stuff gets included. It's like, yeah, judge, I mean, we asked for everything and they didn't fix it. So then I figured, well, maybe I would just narrow it down where they can simply understand it, one item at a time, judge. I'm not sure what to do because I'm dealing with this big machine. And so, so that's kind of that. So that being said, Sam.
Question in the comments for you, Steve.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. Sherry, all right. As it relates to this one being viewed and the inaccurate reporting by Amex, which I guess was probably the TransUnion, I'm thinking. When we are disputing based on eOscar coding and the trade line is actually removed because of a successful dispute, can Amex resubmit to the CRA again? And if so, how long does the client have typically? Yeah, good question. So under the FCRA 1681I, which is the section that has to do with furniture direct disputes, a trade line, or as the FCRA calls it, an item of information, can be reinserted if it's certified to be accurate and complete. However, here's the problem with that. Here's the paradox of that, and there's case law to back this up. If it's removed as a result of a dispute, the bureaus have a 30-day period to either fix it or delete it. Statutorily, if they can't figure it out, they're supposed to delete it. That's the intent of Congress, is you can't just sit around for 6 months and then when you get around to it, correct it. The intent is, okay, you put them on notice, they have 30 days to figure it out. And if they can't figure it out, they're required to delete it. So if it gets deleted as a result of a dispute, they've de facto acknowledged that they couldn't figure it out. If they reinsert it later, they've de facto acknowledged that they had the information previously to figure it out, but they just didn't take the time to figure it out. So they basically acknowledged that their prior reinvestigation was unreasonable. And keep in mind, most of the litigation, the way that Congress designed the FCRA, again, not giving legal advice, but is if their procedures fail, not if they report inaccurate information, but their procedures fail. So there is basically case law to paint this flow that I just described to you. So yes, in theory, it can be reinserted if they certify it's complete and accurate. But if it's prior deleted as a result of a dispute, as opposed to just, they just deleted themselves without a dispute, right? So, I mean, if they just decide to delete the trade line, cool, okay, whatever. And then they take 6 months because whatever reason they've got a problem, and they take 6 months and they reinsert it and certify it's accurate. That's a different scenario than if they were put under a 30-day deadline of a dispute where they now have only 30 days to fix it, right? So reinserting it after that, basically de facto says they could have fixed it the first time, but they didn't. And so they essentially just bought themselves a whole bunch of time, which violates the 30-day provision of the FCRA. So hope that helps.
Sherry, I want to comment on that too. There is a law. I should ask Mr. Thesaurus which one it is. I know it says it on our letter, but I don't know what it is. It's the reinsertion letter. The credit bureaus are under obligation to notify the consumer within 5 business days of a reinsertion. And if they fail to do so, the credit bureau may be held liable. So now here we have a unique situation, because very often the credit bureaus fall back on, we're stewards of the data, we're doing what they told us to, and they have no liability. But in this situation, it's actually the credit bureau's responsibility to notify the consumer within 5 days of the reinsertion. And that doesn't happen. What very often happens is that Amex re-updates their computer, it shows up on the consumer's credit report again, and the bureau had no idea that the account was back there. It just showed up again. But when you point out to the credit bureau, when you send that reinsertion letter, and it quotes the law, of which I could look it up, or Steve will probably look it up for you, and says, hey, you didn't notify me of this reinsertion. Here's my credit report with the account being gone, and here it is now reinserted. Can you send me a copy of the letter where you told me that it was being reinserted? And if not, immediately delete it. We have excellent luck at getting that to be removed from the credit bureau report.
Yeah, and so it's 1681I.
There you go.
Boom.
You're
Okay.
gonna have a reinsertion in there.
Requirements
somewhere.
relating to reinsertion of previous.
There you go.
So it's 1681I subsection A, paragraph 5, subparagraph B. Okay, so there you go. All right, so hope that helps, Sherry. And then
Hey,
Sam,
can I toss in one? This is going to be a little bit more technical, but
Look,
it
wait, no,
relates
hold
to
on a
what we're.
second. I've got to go ahead.
Go ahead.
She says, excellent response from both of you. Never let a good opportunity to talk. Thank you very much. I know.
It reminds me of a tactic, which is a great tactic.
It's
a little bit technical.
We do work for tips, so
Yeah. I work for
you
peanuts.
steal from me and Matt at this good bar.
Yeah.
It's like people who complain about it's like those politicians who complain that the rich don't pay enough in taxes, but yet those rich vote for those politicians. You can pay more in taxes if you want to volunteer it. So if you guys want to give us like a tip, we do that as well. Go ahead, Matt.
I use that, the XB code. The XB code is the FICO score system ignores the negative aspect of the account when it has an XB code on it. And in the Equifax computer system, if you're working with the Equifax computer online, so not if you're on Smart Credit, not if you're on Identity IQ, Credit Check Total, whatever, if you're in the actual Equifax computer system, if you're getting a disclosure direct from them, either going to Equifax.com or going to Annual Credit Report, if the XB code is applied, the account will be missing from the negative section. And it may well be in the positive section and say, hey, this account is 30, 60, 90s. It shows up in the total of all the accounts, but it's not in the negative section because it has the XB code on it. It's an inherent problem with their system because the programmers don't understand credit reporting. So they've removed it from the negative section, but it's still there. Even though it's a charge-off account, even though it has late payments, it's just in the other section. But we have successfully used that reinsertion letter because we'll show a copy of the report with the negative section with that item missing from the month before. The XB code gets removed. It goes back in the negative section. Now we have a picture of a report with it in the negative section. And we will send a letter to Equifax saying, hey, why was this account reinserted? Now, I know it was in the positive section, but I'm playing a little bit dumb there because it was reinserted in the negative section. And please immediately show us that the consumer received a letter within 5 business days or immediately delete it. And we've gotten them to delete it based upon that documentation.
Dude, you lost everybody. I saw Jagis's eyes glazing over at XB. Like, yeah, I'm just playing with you because you're the only one I can see, so I got to give you my time. But so
we should do a whole one on XP code.
So what Matt's trying to say is we go to our Metro 2 manual here. There's a data field called the compliance condition code field. And here's an exhibit 8, which has the different codes. And this is basically the field when an account is disputed. What is the dispute reason? Okay, and XP is one of those reasons. So that's what Matt meant. And this is the Metro 2 manual, just to kind of fill that in. Okay, so Sam, are you still with us, Sam? Did you have any questions? I know these are your babies right here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man?
And I'm here.
You're here?
Yep.
What are you doing, man? You ready to just freaking just tell all these people how they suck? Because you were on this webinar? You just basically asked them to wipe the report clean because nothing's accurate?
Well, the question boils down to how much are you going to stress yourself out to before you get exhausted and before you get of doing this, because you're going to pick your brain and read every line of it and make some notes and challenge them. All what's going to happen is once they get the letter, they treat it the same way. It goes into a computer and they just pick out 1 or 2 codes and boom.
Yeah, so good point. So I think that's a great point. So when we're dealing with the CRAs, you can have an attorney threaten to sue them. They don't give a rat's ass. Okay, I mean, I'm going to tell you, right? So people post all these things online, like letters and all this garbage, and all this stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, they don't care until they get sued. So you're absolutely right. So it's important to understand the distinction between the CRA disputes and the furnisher disputes, right? So I think we want to have that mindset. So on the CRA, again, that's where my general philosophy is: hit them with everything that's wrong round one, because number one, I know that's going to, based on their current procedures, I've got to put that in case, I get subpoenaed and they pull this video and they're like, well, Mr. Palmieri, you said you were trying to trick these guys. No, but based on their current procedures, if I send them 15 different Metro 2 field codes, I know that's going to blow up their eOscar system based on their current processes. Not my problem. And I can have a reasonable expectation that they'll be out of compliance. I'd like for it to get fixed or deleted, but that's my assumption. Okay, so my round one, I'll just dispute every single thing. But if you think of it, that's because everything I'm disputing, if I dispute these historical statuses and everything, that then lays the framework, if it doesn't get fixed or deleted, for my subsequent disputes to say, hey man, especially data furnisher or whatever, we disputed this, you didn't fix it, it wasn't fixed, you can no longer continue to report inaccurate data, you're reporting false information, now give me a payment of a statement of account history. So to your point, I think it's important definitely to recognize the bureaus versus the furnishers. And then how do you set this thing up to where to use the word you used, which was exhausted? At what point do you send this to like the CFPB? And then if they give the middle finger to the CFPB, you are exhausted as far as I'm concerned, right? So yeah, I mean, for sure, we've got to have some sort of reasonable process, pathway, expectations. And so, my typical round one is just freaking hit everything, which really is the spirit of the law, because you're supposed to put them on notice. And if after one dispute they don't fix it, the Congress says you can sue them, right? So there is nothing wrong with telling them there are 10, 15, 20 Metro 2 field codes, current status and historical status, that are wrong. And then rounds 2, 3, and 4, I mean, there's so many ways you can go, but in general, you've got the eOscar codes now. Just try to, cherry pick, just boom one, just boom one, just boom one, because we're trying to keep that thing from getting frivolous, and we're trying to get it deleted. But then that round one really sets the foundation for the furnishers. And if you're communicating with the furnishers, then you can extract original account records. I mean, like the case we talked about earlier, I think it was Alexander. Was he the one who said they mailed like 100 pages to him? So it's like, okay, they mailed the mortgage foreclosure. They mailed you 100 pages, but the foreclosure still had 5 years of no payment history. So, I mean, now you're building your case. And again, so if the furnisher doesn't delete it, they're going to give you something. If they don't give you anything, that's a freaking huge problem. Okay. Under the regulations and things like that of what how they're supposed to treat furnisher direct disputes. I mean, if you've got legitimate issues, I mean, they're supposed to give you information. So if the furnishers can repeatedly just give you garbage for 3 rounds and then you send it to the CFPB and it doesn't get handled, yeah, dude, you're exhausted. That's right. You are exhausted, man. And that's where what we're talking about in this course is, I mean, we can't guarantee deletions, but once you're exhausted, if it's got to go, and if you can't do like credit building things, get them new trade lines and merchant accounts to get their score up. If for whatever reason this thing's got to go, you know, what we're teaching here is, okay, you can hand this thing off to an attorney, right? And pound it out that way. So yeah, dude, I'm with you. I mean, it's, there's no guarantees, but we, you know, if you've done your rounds 1, 2, I mean, if the guy is in a super hurry, you know, after round 1, you can send it to a lawyer too, you know, maybe, you know, at least, and the lawyer can at least maybe start to pound things out through the data furnisher. I mean, because the CRAs, they don't care until you actually sue them, right? I'll say that until they prove me wrong. But the furnishers, you know, again, I mean, if you've got a lawyer that you can send a good quality round 1, 2, and, you know, this thing's got to go in 30 days, you know, but again, what, you know, how much is it worth it to the client? Does the client have money to, you know, I mean, a lawyer's not going to do that on contingency most probably, you know, pay $1,000 to a lawyer or whatever. So yeah, man, it's all about us running a business model. Exactly. A profitable business model, qualifying our clients, walking them through this process, pricing ourselves out to where we don't get burned out because we're not working too hard for too little, right? So these are all important parts that you're saying. But yeah, dude, I agree with you. Okay, any other questions, Sam? No? Yeah?
No, that's it.
All right, cool, man. I appreciate that, bro. So, all right, so we've got our last question was Tiffany White. Basically, she texted me, but I wrote it down. She was like, you know, if, wait, no, this was Nobles, Tiff Rock. Here we go. Yeah, so Tiffany, she was like, basically, she had a potential client who ended up not signing up. And the person the person basically did not hire her, but instead decided to pay the creditors. Will this help her credit? Probably not. It'll probably hurt the credit because when you make a recent payment, then you're going to have AAP, actual payment amount. You're going to have fresh activity. I mean, assuming this is the trade line for whatever, right? This is not it. But as an example, you know, if you've got an account that hasn't been paid in years and you all of a sudden pay this thing down, now you're going to have a fresh actual payment amount. Again, assuming that this is this one with a 298 balance and you pay 298, that refreshes the last activity date. I am not a FICO score expert, but I know recent activity does affect your score more than old activity. So if you've got a consumer who's like, I just want to pay my debts without any assurance of deletion, well, I think it's really important that you understand if there's an underwriting criteria related to this client. In other words, if this client's trying to get a mortgage or something else, what are the underwriting guidelines? Because a mortgage company may say, well, this thing has to have a 0 balance or deleted, regardless of the score. Okay, so in that scenario, though, if it's got to be paid or deleted, it's got to be paid or deleted. But you would be foolish to pay them and to not negotiate a deletion or go through credit repair. I mean, this person, obviously, this is a lost opportunity for her. It's a lost lead. It's probably not really a good quality lead because this person was like, look, I'm not going to hire you. I'm just going to pay these people myself. So, you know, whatever. But for those of us who have paying clients and they're like, hey, you know, by the way, should I pay this? No, absolutely not. Not until we tell you to, right? Not until we've freaking done our thing and we've exhausted it. And, you know, paying for deletion is the last thing you should want to do unless it comes down to it. It's viable, you know, but, you know, are you negotiating with them? Are you going through a few rounds to where you can then call them and be like, look, man, we don't even think we should pay you anything. We just want to not sue you. So how do I should delete it, right? So have you exhausted all of your remedies of negotiating using the mechanisms in place before you lay down a pay for deletion? However, there are a bunch of debt collectors that will do pay for deletions. And so if you've got somebody that needs a turnaround in 45 days for a mortgage, I mean, again, everything's kind of like, you know, where do you go with your strategy, you know? But paying for a non-deletion, just paying to satisfy a negative account can in fact lower your score. That's basically the answer there. So, man, that being said, what a call. This was powerful. As we wrap this thing up, does anybody have any final questions, comments? I haven't gotten anything thrown at me today, so that was good. You know, I feel like I'm doing good.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Judge Issa.
It's pertaining to the one you were talking about earlier for me. I did dispute that account a couple of times. We couldn't get it removed. And so she's on a quick turnaround. So I did call to try to see if I could negotiate a pay per delete for that account. The 2 accounts that I showed you for the 339 and the other one for 514, when I called in, they told me that there's 2 additional accounts that they have for her that are not reported on her credit report. So the balance is actually like $1,090 something or whatever. So we already kind of talked. I spoke to my client prior about just negotiating those two bills. So she goes, oh, well.
I'm interjecting you, Gigi. So just redirect the conversation right to them. I've been on with many collectors of medical bills, and they have other ones in their system that aren't reporting. And your answer to them is, well, I haven't done any research on those accounts. Let's just focus on these right here and take care of these. And leave the other ones alone till they come up on the credit board or something else happens. Chances are they won't, because for whatever reason they're not. And just redirect them to focus on just the ones that you care about.
Okay, but the thing about it, what got me was she was willing to delete it, but they wouldn't negotiate the balance down unless I included everything. So, and so that was the part that was interesting to me, because I already kind of put together something for my client, thinking how much they would pretty much take. And then because there was an additional accounts there, they were like, oh, we can't work a deal if you're not going to include everything.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple parts there. I mean, so number one, obviously, from your business model perspective, you can't be held liable for information you didn't know, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Medical debts. And if you brought a solution to the client where it's like, look, man, you pay these people, they've agreed to delete it, and we all move on. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is, do they have a genuine issue that they don't owe the money, or are they just pissed off?
Well, she doesn't know. She really doesn't know. The 162. There's one for $13 and there's one for $162. And so the one for 162, she doesn't even know anything about it. The $13 one, she says she knows about.
Yeah, I mean, so that's fair, right? So then how much time do they have to fight this thing, right? Because if you're like, look, I genuinely don't know if I should be paying you $2,000. Hold on, Waldo. Hold that finger down, buddy. But you've sent me this spreadsheet which shows 20 things here, but I don't know what the hell this is, Mr. Medical Facility Provider. What am I looking at? I mean, they've got genuine issues, and you can start to pound them. And that's where, again, sending in that HIPAA letter and then talking to the HIPAA person will get you escalated, and they'll have all these conversations with you, right? So, you want to negotiate the art of a deal with somebody who actually has a vested interest in talking to you, right? Right. You're always gonna get your want, but that HIPAA person, they've got a vested interest in you not suing them and all this other stuff, and the doctor, for malpractice or whatever. I'm just saying, right? That's what's going through their mind. So, but I mean, if they're like, look, pay it, and your client's like, okay, well, I think I do owe the money. Mm-hmm. What more does the client want than the fact that, okay, well, they agreed to pay it and get it removed? I mean, again, if they want to, this kind of goes to where a whole business model perspective, right? Where I personally am not a fan of pay for deletion, because if somebody wants you to freaking keep on cranking this thing out, right? Yeah. You offered them a pathway to deletion. If they're like, I'm going to decline that pathway to deletion, I want a settlement and a deletion, which that's a whole other conversation, because in most states, that settlement requires an entirely different license. But we'll just gloss over that for right now for the purpose of this. If they're paying you by the month, okay, your time is valuable. You know what? You can pay me for 12 months for whatever my fair price is that I've charged you on your contract, and I'll do whatever you want, Mr. Customer, right? So, I mean, I think this goes to a whole other topic of, right? I mean, so what makes them think that they can keep on pounding you down when you've provided them a solution, and it isn't worth financially for you to keep on doing it? What is your billing model to your client, right? But I mean, I would say if this is a legitimate deal and there's a legitimate reason why they shouldn't take the pay for deletion offer that you provided to them, if you're not getting anything more, you can certainly send in a HIPAA request, and then with the POA, continue to dialogue with the HIPAA person and see if that can get you anywhere. You would have to really start to dispute the legitimacy of this stuff, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things. What's that?
And that would take some additional time as well. So.
Well, hell yeah, it's going to take some time. I mean, that's again. So, what is your client's goal, right? I mean, that's why we've got to start having clients who have money in the bank, right? I mean, and we start by pricing them out by what we charge, right? I mean, if we're charging, as an example, I'm not saying you, but like $99 a month to sweep your credit, dude, you're going to get everybody under the sun that has bad credit and no money. Those are terrible clients. Mm-hmm. If you're charging $199 or $299 or $349 a month or whatever, and you can provide a good deliverable, right? You're going to have clients. Number one, you're going to make more money per client. You're going to have more reasonable clients because they're paying you, right? You've had that meeting of the minds. And it's like, okay, I mean, you can pay me $300 a month for the next 2 months, which is $600 to fight this. Or you can just pay $1,200 to these guys, right? So there's a lot of other conversations that go here. But if your client's in a hurry, they need to either take what you gave them or figure out how to pay you to keep fighting them. But this goes, and I'm not immune to this. We've got to set clients' expectations, right? And this is all part of just the frustrations we all have, because you provide them a perfectly good deal, and they're not wanting to take the deal. So where do you go from there, right?
Right.
Matt, I think you were going to say something.
Hola. All right, Jajissa. I remember I like to argue, and that's my job, is to argue. So I'm going to give you a thought on that.
Okay.
I love to write the original hospital or doctor or medical provider, because the collectors hate when I go ahead round them to the original credit provider. Number one, they hate that. And if you get a reputation as a third-party company for doing that, they'll much rather, when you represent a consumer, just drop the account and not deal with you, because they don't want you interrupting. The hospital's like, hey, maybe we should find another collector. This guy's doing something wrong. So number one, it's a great tactic to set yourself up as a good company. But in that situation, what occurred to me is I'd write a letter to the hospital and say, dear hospital, we're representing this consumer, and it's come to our attention with the collection company that we have some documentation. You sometimes offer some consumers a discount and some other and sometimes not. And we're investigating this practice of yours with this collector, in particular this consumer. Can you comment if sometimes your whether or not you give a discount is related to the consumer's race or their ethnicity?
Okay.
We just don't like guys that have pink and white striped shirts.
But start to think outside the box, right? Your job is to cause some trouble. They just told you they're going to take a settlement for this, but not for that. Right? And now I'm going to go back and hold them accountable to go back to the hospital and make them explain to the hospital why they would only take a discount some of the time and not all the time, because the hospital probably gave them a carte blanche to do, a certain percentage, and they're trying to leverage it further. And you want to know, hey, listen, what's your policy? These guys are refusing to give a discount. Sometimes, so I know sometimes that you guys give a discount. We have some documentation to that effect. But this consumer, they don't want to give a discount. And is it because of race? Is it because of religion or age? Is it income? What's the reason that you're not giving this consumer a discount? Right. Can you please comment? And yeah. Anyway, I'm causing trouble.
Jajisa's from Jamaica, so she'd be like, "You're making me crazy, man. What's this discrimination, man?"
It isn't she? And no problem.
All righty. So,
thank you.
All right. So, and I've got a call here in 15 minutes. I've got to get on. But this was a good call this week, guys. So, any other questions, thoughts, comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
All right.
I love this kind of stuff. Like, I thought of that one thing to go after the collector right there, but sometimes you'll think of something that I got some good stuff. I got 20 USC 1078-6 on my little notepad over here, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I still learned some stuff today. And cool. Sometimes somebody else sees it differently, or sees something that I wasn't thinking about, or you see something I wasn't, or I see something that you weren't. And that's really what this is about, is sharing the information and coming up with solutions to help each other and make each other better. And just to bring it back to the original premise, that's what CreditCon's about. And so come to the event and share
we got to touch CreditCon one more time.
I had to work it back. It's the same
arms. Let him know. He'll put you to work. So, there's a lot of tables that need to be set up over there.
Yeah.
Smiling faces, brand ambassadors. In fact, he may even, if you can't afford the hotel, no problem. You can go to Walmart, get a hammock for $30, and he'll string the hammock on that little palm tree back there, right in front of the hotel.
It's funny you say that. I checked for hostels in the area, and the closest one is quite a ways away in Tampa. But I've done that before. I'll stay in the hostel down the street at some different events. I did that when I went to FICO World. I didn't stay at the $369 or $89 a night down Manhattan. No, I stayed at the hostel for, I think it was $59 a night. It was really cool. So yeah, you do what you got to do someday. You know what I mean?
That's the kind of goes to those hotels you can rent by the hour, right?
Yeah.
The Aloha Motel.
Yeah. I don't think they have that right there, but yeah.
All righty, guys. Well, I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. And as usual, appreciate you guys for being a part of this. We do this for y'all. And any questions in the meantime, post them up in the group.